This conference will now be recorded.
Must be important out there. That's two Toyotas that you appreciate. I'm glad they're competitive.
Hey, Chris. Sir. Where do we have the, we've got Waltrip in today. Where do we have them? Where are we going to put them in at? So what we do is if we can maybe insert them in front of the staff reports. Just because that way he didn't have to sit around. Okay, great, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. It is 3 o'clock. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, for the record, I'll call the roll. We have Supervisor Walsh, Supervisor Tinkle, Supervisor Banks, Supervisor Gephardt, and we've got Supervisor Guy, who is attending virtually via web meeting. We also have District Council and District Manager on site.
Mr. Chairman, if you could entertain a motion to allow full participation by Mr. Guy finding exceptional circumstances.
I so move.
Second.
Motion is second. Chris, will you call the vote? Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Guy?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Walsh?
Yes.
5-0, motion passes. Mr. Guy can participate.
4-0.
4-0, because
Bill, I'm sorry.
And just as a common courtesy as we get going, make sure if you have a cell phone in the audience here that you are, put it on mute. And if you are on the web meeting, if you would do us a favor and put your line on mute until speaking, just to avoid any additional background noises. We're just waiting for Chris to get back, and then we'll see if there's any audience comments.
We're waiting on one person.
Okay. So we have one comment.
Consultant waiting person.
Okay.
Boards on the park.
Do we have any of those that wish to speak today?
No, I don't have any cards. I don't have any chats coming in from anybody who'd like to speak.
Okay. So we will start with staff reports. Tony, we can start in your end.
Just some updates. I'll hand out without the anticipation of the board reading it today, but it'll make it for an agenda item for the next board meeting. Where it's with regards to the utilization and ability to utilize the proceeds from the sale of the fire impact fees for the construction road. It'll be in the next agenda packet, and it's pretty thick because it has a backup documents. Bottom line, my opinion and the conclusion by Sandy McLennan Bond Counsel is the proceeds can be utilized. We have certain parameters for the utilization of that. And we'll ask the next board meeting for the board to adopt a resolution finding the particular district purpose with regards to the funding of that construction road.
There's enough paper there to start a fire.
This is for, when we put down, heavy equipment goes over muddy areas, so they don't sink in. Hold it up, can't please. Oh, these are just copies. No, and it'll be in the agenda packet. And before the meeting, I sent a copy by email to Mr. Guy, to Mr. Measy, Mr. Rovner, Mr. Adamczyk, so they will all have that. And so those funds, again, we'll just have a resolution on the next board meeting, so that 580,000 and change is available.
So no conditions.
The condition is the district owns the right of way. The district owns it in fee simple, and emergency access and access for fire vehicles, et cetera, and evacuation of residents of Pelican Reserve. was what we talked about and consistent. So I'll just have these available at the end of the board meeting so you can take it home.
Tony, from a historical basis,
Yes, sir.
how much does the $580,000 typically generate in terms of dollars that they'll have to spend? Do we get 50%, 60%?
Well, I'm not sure
70%?
about this. I have to look at the ledger because the discount amount, no, it's,
That's what I'm
for,
trying to get at. What are we really going to have?
I think it's been what, like 20% discount, 30%, I think.
Typically after a broker's fee is 7%, and then there's a discount to
Discount
the
at sale.
buyer, right?
But the 580 is actually cash in the bank.
Right.
That's there today. There's about 900,000 in credits left, I understand. So if
Right.
you assume there's a discount of the sale of those, and they extend until April 1st, I always love April 1st stuff. April 1st of 2025. So there's another 4 years, the district, that they can sell those,
So that'd be another 200,
possible,
250,000.
depending upon the market in the city of Fort Myers. So the cash is there. I mean, that money is there to be utilized. The 580,000 and change is,
And if we don't use it, it just kind of goes away.
no, you can use it for anything. No,
No, if it's not used.
the
It's
580,000?
Sits.
No, it's in the account. It just sits in the account. It's in an account.
It's currency. I mean, so it's,
Okay.
It should be
sits in-
used for capital replacement. That's what bond counsel indicates, because it's from the sale of impact fee credits, which were acquired by virtue of the district reimbursing WCI for capital facility, the life safety station. So the 581,000 that's in the account, the district's bank account today, can be used for capital replacement projects. And we also, and if you'll see in her email, she also mentioned the boardwalk might be a possibility. A discussion came up. I had a discussion with Ron DePonte. He raised that issue. And if that's again benefit to the phase one people, because it's in phase one actually.
It's in phase one.
So other
It benefits everybody though.
yeah, and other capital projects like that. So to the extent that this road is less than the 580 cost, you have, that money can be utilized for other capital projects. And I think it would just take additional supplemental resolutions by the board to find that requisite benefit. And again, as time goes on and as the district hopefully will sell more of the credits and get more cash in that account, then the board has the ability to utilize that money for the additional, any other capital projects.
but remind me, what's the credit volume?
I think it was like $1.4 million to begin with.
No, it was $1,510,000.
Like that, hey, thank you, Phil. And
Yeah.
right now, after the
And-
sale discounts, it's 580,100 or something like that.
Yeah, and as a matter of interest, we have sold about $647,000 worth of the fire impact fee credits and got 580,000. So it cost us some $67,000 to sell them in brokerage fees and discounts. But we still have over 800,000 that are still available to be sold.
Yes. So that's the good news on that, and appreciate Sandy working hard on that. And also, like I said, I don't have any, and I guess next week we're having a conference call again with the working team for the construction road to discuss again a collaborative strategy going forward.
Was that Wednesday at 2:30?
Yes, sir.
The 23rd, I think.
Well, that's good news.
Nothing else to report. Is there any questions from the board?
District engineer. Who do we have on?
Stephen?
Steven?
Hey, good afternoon. This is Stephen Agapi with Tetra Tech. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
This afternoon, we just have a task authorization. This is to extend our current scope for the inspection services at the roundabout utility construction project. This will add 120 hours of inspection time for this project.
And I'll take the responsibility for that. We're about 70% complete with the utility work at Commerce Lakes. That project's on schedule, but it's a 365-day schedule. They're about 93 days into it. And the next 3 or 4 weeks are critical, and we just wanted to make sure we had coverage there. The original task order had about half-time construction, observation, and supervision. So on our $780,000 construction job, we're adding $15,000 to make sure we have enough construction time to cover it.
And this is on Commerce Lake.
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
Second.
So we have a motion, a second. Chris, call the vote, please.
Sure. Mr. Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Geppert?
Yes.
Mr. Guy?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Walsh?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Well, that was easy, guys. That's all the updates that I have on my end. I'll stay on the line. I know there's some other agenda items that involve engineering, so I'll be on the phone unless you guys have any other questions. I'll hand it off.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I forgot the item on the
yeah,
perma criteria.
perma criteria,
I'm sorry.
Bob pointed that out. I was going to circle back to you.
Yes, what I took in the agenda packet, I highlighted in yellow additional edits since the last board meeting. And again, these are for any further comments that the board may have before we have our public hearing at the next board meeting on March 4th. In page 16, in the yellow of the agenda packet, look at the top right-hand corner, there was a yellow highlighting to add, hopefully clarify that the fee schedules for the review of application plans and submittals and construction review and inspections. So that's was clarified. I think Mr. Tinkle made a comment to clarify after our discussion.
I don't remember, but I had another question. You made reference somewhere, and I didn't, walked off, left it at home. There was a reference to, I think, an exhibit F, which I believe was, you were referencing something like this.
That's correct. And what Mr. Tinkle is holding up, and Stephen maybe can't see it, but it's a sort of an illustrative suggested downspout piping
Layout plans.
Layout plans from another CDD, and Stephen has that and is going to create a document for this district comparable to that, if that's acceptable to the board.
Yeah, I was looking through it and I didn't find.
We didn't have it in there.
It went in there.
But it will be in the packet for the
Okay.
rule adoption. It's one of those things where it's do this, don't do that kind of approach. And
The question I had on this is for new construction.
or
correct?
redevelopment,
Or redevelopment.
or redevelopment. If
Define.
a person has, and a person has a house structure, they're gonna knock it down and rebuild. Reconstruction, redevelopment. And again, I don't know the history.
It's not to go into an existing community,
Not a retro,
not a.
unless there's redevelopment
Is that
or
the
or
nightmare?
reconstruction.
Okay.
And that does show up on page 55 was another addition. We talked about solar. So
Do you have the aeration?
yes.
Yeah.
In the yellow highlighting language, is that acceptable to the board? And
To
then,
go to circle back to what Ed was just saying, but it won't preclude a community that exists that say may on their own volition decide to install downspouts. Now we have a guide for them
I don't have a problem.
that's
in
correct.
which to do it,
But
right?
that, if it's optional, if it's voluntary on
That's
their
right.
part, yes.
That's right.
I do have a question. Is this the same as a document that, who's in Tetra Tech? Is it Tyler or then
Steve,
Stevens on.
Steven? Tyler had sent to me a document similar to this for the Lake 83, and it just does not look anything like that document that I was sent. So I just wanted to know why the change.
oh, well, no, I didn't see the one for Lake 83. This is one I picked up from
I haven't seen
another CDD. If you look at it, it's from
Yes.
Heritage Bay CDD.
I don't have any problem with these options in the layout. If this is a typical type thing.
This is one I saw again for another
Yeah,
district.
I don't have any problem.
Hey,
And
Steve,
this is just a reference, a guide,
acceptable
that-
forms of doing.
acceptable forms that we're going to
Yours
use.
different?
What's, it isn't any one of those options?
No,
God, what else?
I
there
can,
is
I
there?
can see if I can pull it up and
Spy
have
hook?
Georgia print it.
Stephen?
Just because
Where
I
did you
was,
get
I was,
yours?
I was, Tetra Tech, I
Oh,
was
okay.
really concerned that I wanted to make sure that the residents, because it was gonna be retroactive for us, they're already there. That once they start doing the work, that they were not gonna compromise the work that was done, and they're gonna do a direction, and they had the engineers, not me or anybody in staff telling them how the engineer did. It didn't look,
Not a swale, though, is it?
it was a one fit for all. Kind of, so let me pull this.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if it's a
Because
swale, that's a
they're
whole
being,
different.
yeah, because
ballgame.
they've been using it, so, okay.
Tony, did you get one?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And again, I happened to be unrelated to working on this rules. I happened to be looking at some other CDD documents, and I saw they had a stormwater management rule and they had this graphic. And Stephen, you indicated that you can quickly generate such a document.
Yeah, so our CAD guys already kind of just put a gateway title block on it. I can send it to you guys, Monday for review. I was kind of confused. I didn't know if you guys were trying to vet these out or if you guys wanted to adopt these. I don't know how much, time anyone's like looked at these or not. Is it for discussion or is it for adoption?
Today is not adoption. March 4th is adoption.
I think what I'd like to see is, Stephen, you take these, plagiarize the hell out of them to the extent you want, add what you would put in and see what your recommended 4, 5, 3 options are.
Yeah,
I don't have any problem
yeah,
with
and
this.
consistent with the textual language that's in here with regards,
Well,
it talks about concrete collars and if that-
Absolutely.
and that would need to be in the agenda packet, so that would need to get to you, Chris, by next Tuesday to make the March 4th. Is that correct?
Okay.
And if
And I
if
think
I
that's
remember-
critical to have this in there.
It
No,
is.
I agree.
It
And
is.
to speak to that, I think based on our last conversation, we were originally talking about a preferred approach. And then what we realized is there's certain communities, based on environments or whatever, that the recommended approach could change. So I think when you go through it, what I'd be curious to better understand is when we put this in, we either need to specify a preferred approach and alternative solutions that either require some type of approval or something. Because I don't want to just say, like, here's 5 options you can choose from.
Every other lot different.
Right, yeah, there's inconsistencies, but also it may not, a community may go with an option that is not the most adequate for their environment. So I want us to be very direct when it comes to what we're putting in there and what we're saying is preferred approach and then alternative solutions based on approvals.
Well, none of these say it, but the inference is that there's not going to be a swale.
Right, so what's important is not only what we want people to do, but what we don't want them to do. So I think we may need to call out, what may not be acceptable
Well,
or imply it somehow.
And Doug, some of the variables that come into play, whether you choose option 1 or option 4 or whatever, depending on whether you're replenishing your lake bank. If this is the project to put in the downspouts, then option 1 will probably be the way you go. If you're redoing the pond bank, then you might want to look at one of the other options.
Yeah.
The only other thing I'd like to see in this, Stephen, is, and Heritage Bay did a good job with it, but they did not put in the mid-home drain. And I'm going to propose that to our board.
What's that?
If you look at, say, option 1, and you see where it says single family home,
Yeah.
just draw an imaginary dot between the words family, and mid-home and connect it in. And the reason that I'm going to propose that is a few years ago, we were all alarmed about the potentials for Zika virus, and that came from standing water. And speaking for Pelican Preserve, that condition, standing water, was very prevalent in our community. So we put in the mid-home drain that feeds back, yard drain, so that area stays dry.
Oh, I
It's
see.
relatively inexpensive when you're putting it in with everything else, but it's a real good add if Zika ever rears its ugly head again in the
Well,
future.
especially if they build the lake with the swale or the slope.
That's
you're
another.
just creating a
You're
deal
creating
for water
bathtubs.
storage.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'm just going to show some ignorance here for a second, but this specifies single family, but we're also talking about villas and
We did carriage homes also, a little different, but it's just building to building. But yes, it's still the same principle.
yeah. And so Stephen, this in your draft or what you guys are doing, you would call out that as well. So if there's whatever type property there is within the community, you would address it through the solutions.
Because
Okay.
a carriage is going to take a wider pipe because
It
there's
is
much
called-
greater volume of water.
Yeah, it says multifamily option, and so maybe
Oh,
that's,
multifamily at the end. Okay, I see.
maybe that's what Stephen can maybe expand upon to address this issue about greater volume, which requires a greater pipe size.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And then to the point with regards to the swale, the last sentence in that section, which is on agenda page 58, says use of open swales between buildings or structures directly to a lake is prohibited. Does that address the issue adequately?
That will help me.
Yeah.
So if we've added the concrete collars to this, we put in the Zika format, I'm good with it.
And then Ed, I think Mrs. Walsh had the option that Tetra
Yeah,
Tech.
well, what I looked, this one here that Tetra Tech did for Flavia appears to me to be more the downstream component of this at the point of the Y. And
Not
then,
the runoff.
and not the backup,
Yeah.
not the connection to the house. So I think this is
The other part of it?
the other part.
This is the bottom part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is
not
equally
here.
as important, right?
Which,
This is the work again.
Yeah, so Stephen, what we're specifying
I'm
is,
gonna guess you had this.
there was something that I think Chip had supplied to Flavia, which was at the point of connection runoff to the point of the output. So I think we need to specify the options from the unit, the housing unit into the ground, and then from into the ground into whatever the outlet.
Yeah, Stephen, I'll send you what Flavia has. It's 2 pages.
You just incorporate into this is probably a match line type deal.
Yeah, I'll send it. So it's for you having to hunt through your files.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
So
Nothing further.
we're good on engineering, we're good on council. We kind of
Thank
went back and forth on
I
that.
apologize for.
Under, I think there's one on page 15. I think we're missing, the GSCDD. I think it's missing the C. And then I have a question also.
Let me see. I never,
In paragraph 2,
Somewhere, and then a question in regards to developer, and if we should add the word and owner.
oh, there we go. I see what you're saying. On page 15, the second full paragraph, the second line,
yep, exactly.
there's a space. I did that on purpose so that you,
So I
just kidding.
captured,
Yeah,
okay.
sure.
And then under the, not number 3, but the one before, so be the 4th one, the second to the last sentence, what it says, prior to submittal, developer shall meet, should it say developer and or owner?
Where's that?
Developer.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, so
Very good.
are we good there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
So-
Chris, we can either go into district manager report.
Thank
you. Or we can jump to Walter.
Well, this will take me about two
Okay, then
minutes.
we'll
and
go
I'll-
ahead with
and I'll
yours.
just move ahead. And
Yep.
basically what I wanted to do is, looking forward to the next meeting on the 4th, we'll be bringing forward the state revolving loan design and permitting agreement. Also Stony Brook and asphalt paving project. Laura will be making a presentation on the draft budget schedule for next year to get board input on it. On our outreach, we've got Daniels Preserve on February 22nd, Magnolia on the 23rd, and Eagle Point on the 29th. We're scheduling meetings with other HOAs, discussing the budget schedule, Lake Bank project, potential for the President's Council, stormwater utility, and soliciting their concerns. So hopefully by April, we'll have hit all the HOAs that'll have us.
And are we thinking about doing the President's Council? Are we thinking about doing that quarterly?
Well, I'm asking them. So
What
far,
they
some
want.
of them are more, I say, looking at quarterly, yearly, would you like? And I even talked to them about having a cookout over at the park with
Yeah.
hamburgers
I
and
mean, I
hot
think-
dogs,
I wouldn't
something
want,
like that.
I think quarterly is the frequency that we need.
Right.
Monthly is too frequent, I think. But quarterly, I think biannually or annually would just be too spread out. So I would ask for their commitment for quarterly, and it would be the president or their proxy. We prefer the president, but we could accept a proxy.
And going over that emergency access road, we've hired a planner to do the DRI work. We'll have the survey proposal and get that started next week. Mr. Tinkle and I are meeting with the county engineering staff next Monday at 2:30, and we'll have an update meeting with the whole working group next Wednesday.
So we're green now with the road, with the emergency road.
Everything's moving forward.
And again, at the next board meeting, I'll have that resolution to authorize the expenditure of the funds for the design and construction of
Mr.
And,
President, would you ask the members to speak directly into their microphones, please?
Yes, sir, we will.
And it's hard for them to hear and hard for the recording. And March 18th, workshop time, we're looking at our stormwater inspection that's recently been completed and cleaning update with moving forward. And also talking about some of the problems we're having up at the swimming pool. We had to close it one day for clarity issues, and we just wanted to expand on some of those problems.
Yeah.
And, we'll also be bringing the joint project agreement to the board for Gateway and Griffin Boulevard for that roundabout. We just got our first invoice for Gateway and Commerce, $171,000. And on April 18th, we'll be bringing forward the draft utility rate study recommendation, update to district rules, and formation of a stormwater utility.
Right. And hey, Brian, would you mind just giving a quick update on the fun park?
Yes, the fun park, we removed both goals. We had a new one installed. We had a company come out of Tampa that did an install. The new hoop set at 7 feet. We basically have a half court now. I had one gentleman today wanting to know if I could raise it to 10 feet.
Knew that was coming.
Well,
Just some, no, but he can lower himself.
Did we take the
down.
crank off?
yes,
Yeah.
crank's there. Actually, they raised it on their own, so we put a lock through it. So that cannot be adjusted
Yeah.
anymore. Plus they cut the lock, but you know.
Is there somebody from Gateway?
Yes, I presume. Is you got a couple adults down there want to play on it.
Yeah.
So, but we put a lock through it. So hopefully that'll solve the issue.
Yeah.
But
Have we heard any other feedback as far whether, those that have maybe complained about things in the past, have they seen any difference?
I've heard
I got
zero.
some calls because people were cranking up the goal and doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, we put it on, they installed it on a Friday.
I knew that was the plan all along,
We'll
so it was
see.
a timing
We'll see
consideration.
what happens. So whenever the weekend, I saw him Sunday, I said, okay, it's back to normal. So Monday, I had Rick go down there. I said, put a lock through it, and it's been that way all week.
So when you lower it and raise it, the lock is there. So
Well, it's all the way down low.
Yeah.
And you put a lock through that so it can't go up.
okay.
anymore.
So it's through the mechanism. So it's
Correct.
not like loose, so you can't.
You can't go no more.
What is it at 7 feet?
It is right now. It's about 7 or 7.5.
Okay.
I mean, I can reach it.
That's what it
5
looked
foot.
like the other day.
And that's, for an adolescent goal, 7
It's
feet,
low as
7 to
it-
8 feet is
It'll
is
low as it'll go.
perfect. Yeah. Okay.
So,
So we'll play by ear and see. It might be worth just reaching out to some members of that community that have been vocal in the past, if we have those on record, just to see if they could keep an eye out, see if things have improved.
I'll ask them. I know the folks. that
There's probably a
call.
couple that
Yep.
that you can call. So, all right, thanks, Brian. Appreciate
You're
it. Anything else, Chris?
No, we're ready to move forward if you'd like to the Waltrip engineering proposal,
So you can-
Brian.
Okay. Good afternoon, Brian Brashear, Public Works Manager. Gateway Commons Park Conceptual Master Plan. I've asked Waldrop here to do a proposal for us. I'm going to let Fred Drovlik and his team come up and we have some books around you folks. They gave you some different ideas, what they think will work. Give you a background, the Commons Park in conjunction with the development order. Back in 1994, allocated a swimming pool, sports fields, courts, amphitheater, meeting, administrative rooms, and basically you have a requirement of 30% open space. I'll let Fred and his folks get into the details to give you some different ideas what they think. Recommendation would be to hire them. We do have the funds in a special events account that we did not use due to COVID, so we can cover that cost. But with further ado, I introduce you to Fred Drovlik. He's with Waldrop Engineering, and Fred can come and introduce his team and go from there. Come on up, Fred.
I'm okay to take my mask off here.
Yes.
All right. Well, good afternoon. Thanks for inviting us.
I saw that.
Sorry, we jumped right to
You're
page
hired.
7.
When will the Bahama bar
Yeah,
start opening?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Sorry.
I know, that's a favorite.
There's
I
a
love that
visual
one,
of a Bahama bar in their presentation. For some reason, we all landed on that page
too.
simultaneously.
Yeah, the
so,
Margaritaville and Bahama.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put an earmark on that one. I mean, it's not a coincidence that you landed there. So I want to just give you a quick overview of Waldrop. You may not be familiar with our services and who we are. And then Grant who's with us. Grant Will Banks is with us, and he's a landscape architect, and he's worked for a long time in the resort and amenity planning field. And then Jim Inc. is here, and he's an engineer with our company, who's been second generation engineer, Fort Myers and Lee County, and civil engineering, water management, and he even calls himself a planner and a landscape architect from time to time. So he just does it all. My name's Fred Drovlik, and I am a planner. So I work in entitlement and zoning within our firm, and then help do project management. So Waldrop Engineering is a company that started in 2000 by Ron Waldrop. And since that time, really up until between 10, 12 years ago, it was just a small firm that was headquartered in Bonita Springs and about, under 20 people. Since that time, since the bust, and even through that time, they never laid anybody off. Instead, they went the opposite direction, expanding their services. And now we're a company of just over 90, and by next 6 months or so, with staff being able to be found, will be about 100 people in 5 different offices. Our headquarters in Bonita Springs has grown now to about 45 people, including the services and the resort amenity and lifestyle planning, which Grant heads up. And that has grown to be now just under 15 people just in that section alone, which I believe is one of the biggest areas of any engineering or landscape architecture firm in Southwest Florida that specializes in that kind of services. So a lot of horsepower in this area and a lot of experience. What you'll see here is examples of some of our work. So we're not here necessarily to give you ideas of what we think Gateway should be quite yet, because that takes some due diligence after we're hired to do some work. But we wanted to show you our capabilities as a firm as far as understanding the scope of what you may be dealing with, understanding the phases that may be needed, and the understanding of here's the opportunities, and then down to here's the cost. Here's what it may cost, all the way from we got to fix the pool to we got to redesign or design this acreage to what it was originally supposed to be, except the modern version of that. So with that said, I'm going to let Grant take you through some of these pages, and then we'll be here to answer any questions about our approach or scope, and then hear feedback from you. All right, Grant, come on up.
Thank you, Fred. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Grant Wilbanks. I'm the Director of Landscape Architecture for Waldrop, for our Fort Myers offices and our Bonita Springs offices. I've been with the company about 8 years now. As Fred said, we cover a broad gamut of design services, and this specific instance, we'll be talking more about resort and hospitality and amenity type planning. So I wanted to walk you through some examples of our work, and we'll kind of do that briskly. I just want you to get an idea from some photographs and some renderings that we have, and then afford you a little bit of time for some questions as well. Is this the slide right here?
Oh, no, we don't.
Okay. Okay, all right. So I'll follow along with the booklet. Okay. So the first project we see is the Players Club at Laley Resort. Some of you may be familiar with Laley. It's a sprawling complex down in South Collier County. We've done a lot of work with that client over the years and several portions of the community. The Players Club was a very special opportunity for us, and it was kind of the jewel of the community, or was perceived to be. It had seen some age and a little bit of, I won't say dilapidation, but it's maybe a little more antiquated. So the clients decided they wanted to get this thing up to speed and get with the trends and come at it with a whole new style and a whole new perspective. And that included taking advantage of some additional acreage that they had available. The Players Club has always been a spa and tennis center, and they really wanted to expand on that and increase its presence in both those areas. So along with a massive renovation of existing building and an addition on the existing building, they really took advantage of the space they had available for outdoor living and lifestyle enhancements. So this first page we're looking at, the larger image you see is a very preliminary conceptual design. And this is one step in the conceptual master planning process. They had a couple of pools existing, but they wanted to add a pool. So we added the large lagoon-shaped pool on the left. They want to do some additional bocce courts, spas, just create a really wonderful resort, tropical oasis type feeling. So some of the associated images on the same pool, or same page, excuse me, are basically a vignette of different ideas, representing a variety of styles, and kind of cherry picking some of the premium areas throughout the site. And those were some of the initial concepts, just to give the client an idea of how some of these areas could look based on some really specific input that he gave us based on what his vision was. So that's something we really strive hard to do, is to latch on to developing a program with our clients so that we're all on the same page about how we're going to move forward. And once we have that program, it's a very collaborative process, and especially the initial parts of the design stage. So it's really about everyone just buying into the vision and understanding what the goals are, and then working forward with some really great concepts. So your next page is some of the same type of vignettes, waterfall imagery, just thinking about how we can create that wonderful tropical lagoon oasis effect. A few specimen type plants are there. Just again, cherry picking little premium parts of the site to create a little bit of a vision for what that might turn into. You do see some photographs on the same page, and so, you know, the bottom image is of the new entry sign to the Players Club. So we pretty much did everything there from the front entry all the way to the back part of the property. Going to the next page, see some larger photographs of the finished product. The upper left shows existing pool and the new pools, then with a golf course beyond. So try to create a setting with these resorts so that it marries with what's recent to it. So we felt like we really hit the mark there, creating a wonderful tropical resort feel that just marries seamlessly with the golf course beyond. The image to the right is their feature fireplace area. And that was a really focal point area in the client's mind, and they wanted it to be an intimate gathering area and create this wonderful, more or less seasonal fireplace effect. So we put a lot of heart and soul into that, and gave them a lot of different versions to look at, and they finally settled on what you see there. And this is only showing a portion of it, but when you're there, it's actually very spectacular, but in a very subtle way, if you can imagine that. It's a very cozy, intimate space. The bottom right image is of the new resort pool and associated waterfall. So that was created with multi-use in mind. Actually, we wanted adults to be able to enjoy that, but what you don't see is that you can actually go under that waterfall and come out the other side, and you're in a shallow area that's really designed more for children. It has a beach entry and some actual play features in it, and of course the waterfall itself is a pretty cool looking thing. Wonderful landscape, brought in some really nice material, and they actually had a lot of wonderful coconuts on site that we relocated from other parts of the community, and they just seem to fit very well into this pool. And there's a few other shots there on the left of the same area. So we go to the next page. The large picture on top is more or less the final product, and shows not only the expansion of the resort pool facilities near the bottom of the picture, but also to note is that the left side of the picture is what really is their new tennis complex. That originally was on the right side of this photograph, which is now parking lot. So they wanted to update, expand, and improve their tennis facility. So in order to do that and to keep everything functioning smoothly and to stage all the construction aspects, we proposed to move the entire tennis facility to the other side of the site. That enabled our engineers to get in there and do all of their wonderful work with the infrastructure, and gave the designers a great opportunity to have a new space to work with to create this tennis complex. Now, if you see the building on the left side of that picture, that is the tennis center. If you look immediately to the right of that, you may see a structure. It's kind of small in this picture, but that's actually the stands for the tournament court that they call it. So we actually designed a very nice structure there for spectators to observe the tennis tournaments. And they've had a wonderful experience with that facility. They're very proud of it, and it really hit the mark for them. If you look bottom right of the tennis complex, you'll see the new bocce courts. There's a series of 4 courts there. They have a cheeky hut at each end to provide shade, and those are well constructed. They're very popular and used all the time. So that's a bit of an overview of Lely Resort, what we did there. So again, a pretty expansive property, and the owners were quite pleased with that. We attended the grand opening, and they were just gushing, and been out there several times with my wife for dinner since then. We've enjoyed the outdoor fireplace and some of the other amenities, and it's just a very successful project. We're very proud of it. Go to the next page, and this is literally turning the page a little bit, no pun intended, but this is Esplanade Golf and Country Club of Naples, and this part of the presentation will focus on the amenity aspect of that community. Esplanade Naples is a master plan community down in Collier County. Pretty large place. I forget how many units it is, maybe I think almost 5,000 units. Coming out of the recession, and we've been working on this project for about 12 years now. That's how long it takes to build one of these things out. But coming out of the recession, we broke ground on the golf course, and this was the first golf course built in Florida post-recession. So we were proud to be part of that milestone. It's a beautiful course, and it's been very successful. So the jewel at the heart of the community is the amenity campus. And if you look at the image on the upper right, that is a hand rendering of the overall campus. There's a new clubhouse, which you see the elevation there on the bottom. That's the front elevation of the new clubhouse. There's also a wellness center and golf pro shops, things of that nature. There's a few buildings throughout the complex. There is a very nice resort pool. There's tennis courts, pickleball, event lawns. I mean, you name it, this place has got it. It's a very active living type of community. So the amenity system had to really address a very complex and extensive program of items. And again, working very extensively in collaboration with the client to develop the program. We finally settled on what we see here. And actually, I think we may have even added a few things after that. But once again, you see the seamless integration with the golf course and the surrounding lakes. Very important characteristic of the community and of the amenity site. We'll flip the page, and what you see on top there is an enlargement of the resort pool area. So we usually provide this for our clients as, in this case, it's more of a marketing collateral type item. They put this up in their sales center before the amenity building even begins construction. So all potential home buyers can see just how wonderful their amenity site is going to be and what a wonderful resort pool they'll have. There was mention of the Bahama Bar a while ago, and that's obviously a very popular destination. That is center bottom of that plan image, and you'll see that on the next page. But again, bocce courts, yoga lawns, flex lawns, spas, very lush tropical landscape, and all this plays off the lifestyle component of the community and of what goes on in the wellness center and the clubhouse. We'll flip the page, and there is the Bahama Bar, and it's the favorite destination of so many people. It's full service food and alcohol, and anything you might want there, they can do it. It's poolside, and it's just a wonderful facility, and I can't imagine this community and this amenity facility being complete without it at this point. So down there on the bottom, you see on the left is a view from across the pool back to the Bahama Bar, and then another just poolside shot. You can flip the page, and this shows just some character images from throughout the site after construction. These are mostly just to show the newly installed landscape, and although it looks very nice at this point, this is right after installation, and As you know down here, how quickly things grow after about a year, it's just, it flushed out and it's just, again, just a tropical paradise and just very, very lush, very thoughtfully conceived and well-executed plan. We'll go to the next page, and this is Azure, some people call it, down in Hacienda Lakes, also in Collier County. This is another master plan community and had a little bit smaller amenity site than Esplanade Naples, but very similar program requests from our client. Obviously not as large and not as many courts and things of that nature, but we maximized the site as best we could without making it too congested and too cramped. There's plenty of space to move around. If you notice, the resort pool there is a very different style than the lagoon style that you saw in Esplanade Naples. So, overall, even though we have not a very rectilinear shaped site, still some of the design components are very, very formal, very symmetrical. Off to the left are tennis courts, pickleball, bocce court. On the pool deck itself, there is a spa, there is a grilling cabana, and then there are personal cabanas along the poolside deck itself that can be leased out by members. If you have a family day, you can rent that thing or reserve it. Just great private retreats. So down at the bottom of that same sheet, these are some hand rendered character imagery of the entry. On the right is a conceptual design of the gatehouse, just showing some character as far as the West Indies style that they were going for and how we might accent that architecture with landscape and some pottery, things of that nature. On the left is the actual entry water feature and signage monument. That's combined with a tower feature, acrylic panels for the water to flow over, and lots of sparkly illumination type things. And what you're not really seeing here is there's lots of water action, frothy jets and bubbles and things like that. Very, very active, very playful, very whimsical type of design. And again, all in the same West Indies type of architecture. So we flip the page, we'll see some actual photographs of all that built. So I think this is a good representation of how vision in the form of conceptual drawings actually go through the entire process of design development, construction drawings, permitting, and construction, and turn out looking so much like it did in the renderings years ago. So again, just thoughtful design concept carried all the way through execution, and very good construction has a lot to do with that as well. We'll flip the page one more time. I think this is our last page, and this is actually just a few images we wanted to add on, and this is another Esplanade community. This one's up in Lakewood Ranch. It's the same client, and the Esplanade is a brand that they have in several different communities, not only throughout Florida, but in other states now as well. Admittedly, the brand, the style has evolved over the last few years into different styles. They try to keep up with trends. So we know that we have to educate them on what those styles and trends are, and keep up with the time. So, however, Lakewood Ranch was actually in design, in permitting, under construction simultaneously, as was Esplanade Naples. So we had a few of these different communities going at once. So I think that illustrates our ability to not only manage these projects from a design and construction documentation process, but all the way through construction as well. So again, just a few images there to show the character is very similar to, and you even see the Bahama Bar like we did in Esplanade Naples. Different site, different shape, a little bit different program, but the results are very, very similar. So that's all the images we have, but I would be glad to take any questions you might have about any of this or anything whatsoever about us, anything you might have.
Hey, Chris, real quick before we get started, the Commons Park area, what's the acreage? What's the 15? I will start with the board. Any questions or comments anyone can jump in if we can start down with Flavia.
Yeah, a little confused. I'm looking at what we're looking for is more of a park, a commons park. This looks more like a resort. Are these HOAs or CDDs?
These are HOAs typically.
Are they all bundled?
Yes, sir. They're all in the same community. So what we're proposing for Gateway is actually a park, but these amenity sites have so many of the same similar components that we would propose and that have been initially discussed as far as a preliminary program for the park. Sports courts, sports fields, hiking trails, amphitheater, a tie-in with the trail system and the FPL easement, amphitheater, improvements to the existing pool, or perhaps even a new pool. So anything you might imagine that you would find in a park that has all the lifestyle components that a community such as Gateway and all the different demographics would want. So that's our mission, to identify what that is and to make sure that we address all of those different program elements and include them in the concept.
For full-scale build out, what are you looking at or anticipating as a budget for what you perceive as our need?
That's difficult to say at this point. As part of this proposal, we do have a budgeting exercise involved, and it is very comprehensive. It covers not only the landscape architecture and the lifestyle components, but it will also cover any civil site work, any infrastructure improvements, soft costs, fees, permitting, you name it, buildings. If you want to build a new clubhouse, anything like that, we cover all that in the budget exercise. But you know, the outcome and what that number is, even if approximate, is really dependent upon what we land on in the final program. And we all agree that this is what we want to see. This is what we go forward with from a conceptual perspective. And once we finally go through all the different concept options and everyone is really pleased with what we have, then we'll go to the budget exercise. And we're very good at budgeting, and we get a really, really good number for you guys to look at that point. But until we really know what we're doing from a conceptual perspective and provide the master conceptual plan, it's hard to put a number on that.
It seems to me that the ball's in our park somewhat to try to give you guidance on the scope. Don't want to bring up dirt, but 15, 16 years ago when I came here first full time, there was almost a public hanging here over a park for $7.5 million. If it even gets word out that this is heading that direction, this thing will die before it even takes its first breath.
Right.
So we need to have what younger people want and older people want, retirees, keeping in mind that a lot of these things, we have a country club here and 600 plus members are already having that, paying for that. The issue they're going to say is, why do I want to pay for this?
Yeah, understood.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's why I wanted to get into it. I think we have to somehow, some way, unless you're planning on doing a monkey survey or some type of a analysis of our community to get some input of what they would like to see. I think what Brian has talked about in the past, I think all of those things pretty much hit and would cover all the bases. But when you start getting into buildings, and as much as I'd love the Bahama Bar, I don't think that dog's gonna hunt. But that, and I don't know about if we want to get involved in the liquor license and all that. That's another game. But I just wanted to see if you understood that or did you have, or were you given a idea of what a budget is going to be on this? And are we talking about $1 million? We talking about 2 million? We talking about 3 million?
And I think the difficulty is, under the CCNA, this is to be a planning or study activity.
I understand that.
Yeah, and so
There's
that's,
still gonna be cost.
well, no, but I'm just saying to not have to go through the competitive selection process.
Well, I understand that, but I'm talking about construction costs, not engineering fees. I can care less about engineering fees.
Well, I think here's the way I perceive it is today was a demonstration on capability and to show some examples of what Waltrip has done in other communities. It's not necessarily apples to apples, because a lot of these are resort and more golf type communities, which we're looking for a commons park. Now, some of the elements in your illustrations, I think, are truly represented: tennis courts, bocce, pool activities, walking trails, those types of things. So you got to pick and pull. What I think what we're going to do is understand in the next part of the exercise is to understand what our requirements are. What are we looking for? Coming out of that, it's what are the costs of that? Then we have to determine what we can fund.
Right.
So we could easily come back with a $10 million project or 7 like we've done in the past. Well, we most likely will not be able to afford that. So it'll be a phased approach, or we have to scale back. So I think the dog will wag the tail a little bit on this, because we'll determine what we can afford in the next exercise. I think what Brian had asked Walter to do is come in, give us some visuals, because we all want to see something, and without saying, hey, here's what we think your park's going to be, which that's difficult to do without true due diligence. Here's some examples of what we have done, the quality, the beginning and end state. I'm going to go to Bob real quick, and then I'm going to circle back, because I've got a couple things.
Yeah, Grant, I mean, the challenge for us as a community, as Ed alluded to at the beginning, is we're competing with a country club, but we really don't want to compete. I mean, the people that spend the money for that, they're getting their value. We're trying to offer something on a more cost-effective way to probably a different group of people entirely, maybe with young kids that don't have the money to spend on a golf club. And I'm assuming that we're going to have, as Doug said, a phased approach or a step approach. Maybe in year 1 to 3, we put X and Y in. But looking out, that sooner or later you're going to need, M and N. So if we look at the master area, what we have to work with, and then provide those incremental steps to get to an endpoint. If we phase it out over a couple of years, so be it.
Well, and what I was going to say is, I mean, Ed brought up a good point. We have a large community with sub-communities, and those sub-communities, some of them have, certain amenities that is either paid for, that you have to pay for at the club, or it just comes as part of what you pay for within your HOA. So I think what we need to look at, and I put down a couple things that I feel is important. And one, first and foremost, it has to be multi-generational.
Wide age range.
We have to have something that's going to have amenities or activities to fit everyone in our community, whether it's the toddlers to those that are retired. There might be some overlap in some of the things that we have, like a tennis court, where some communities have tennis courts. That's okay. But we definitely don't want to compete or feel like, the country club, there's 600, that's about 10% of our population, roughly, give or take. So
No, really not. About 20-some%, because Pelican Reserve don't count.
okay, well, they'll still be able to, no, because they'll use the amenities.
No, they can't.
Yeah, they can. They can't.
They can't use it.
No, they can't use
Can't use
it over here.
No.
They don't
can't
pay
use
for
it.
it.
Don't pay
Oh,
for
that's
it.
right. Okay, yeah, you're correct. So anyway, my point is we have to make sure that we're not competing with existing, so we're going to lose value, there in some of those areas. So for me, one has to be multi-generational. 2, we just need dedicated specific areas, like tennis courts, bocce ball, those types of things. We need green spaces and free play. So people can got walking trails and just open areas to do whatever. We have talked about, the need for an administrative building or an activity, that's something we could rent out. So it could be revenue generating. It's something we just don't have today. We don't have an activity center. So, and I think there needs to be an area like a gathering. So we have a tree lighting ceremony, and we have, things we've done in the past. There's been community cookouts and stuff like that. We've almost stopped doing that because there's really not a place for it. We used to do it at the Commons Park. There's no lighting there. There's some other issues. So we've moved stuff over here to the soccer complex, which means you're really on top of fields and stuff. So we need some areas that we can do things like large scale community events, whether it's an amphitheater or just a big open space. Even the parking lot could be multi-purpose. So these are all these different things. Whether it's tennis courts or bocce ball or racquetball or basketball or whatever, this is what we got to vet out. And again, it has to be multi-generational. There has to be things for everyone. Most importantly, we have to do it within an environment that is budget restrictive at this point. We've got a lot of things from a capital perspective that needs to be improved, but we have pushed this development of the Commons Park for 15 years. And it's a very touchy subject, but it is something I think in order for us to keep up with other communities in this area, I feel like this is something that we need to commit to, but we need to be physically responsible when we approach it. Sure.
Doug, I kind of wanted to I want to make sure that we can look at competing with gateway greens, but we can also look at it allowing the residents to have a choice,
Well, enhancing it too, right?
right? And I'll tell you this, Timber Ridge, Timberbank, if we look at their amenities and what we have none, we know that. What I'm afraid is that we're gonna eventually devalue gateway because people are gonna be moving over there. They are TV, they're gonna be going over there. So I'm in agreement that we should be looking at it as an addition and not necessarily compete and have the exact same things at Gateway Greens, but give the residents an option, even a financial option, because it may be cheaper. And if we're really looking at it overall, then that's what we should be looking at. One thing that in regards to the phases, I think that's what was the plan all along. I think
I just don't think we can afford a
we
$10
need
million
to add
project.
that, yeah.
You know, there's just no way. So
Yeah.
we need to figure out what our priorities are and where there's the biggest value in phase one or phase two. And from a construction perspective, you want to develop, I guess, I'm sure there's a process to how you develop and how you phase, I'm sure there's a methodology to it. So.
You all have made some great points, and these are all considerations that we work with almost every project like this that we work on. So one thing that I think is important to understand that some of this imagery may not have conveyed is that what we really do at Waldrop, especially in the landscape architecture department, is we create lifestyles. That's the word for us. It's not just a space. It's not a park. It's not a facility. It's a lifestyle. And that really works for all demographics. And we've done communities for every demographic, active adult, retired, I mean, you name it, we've done it. And everything you could possibly imagine that any of these people would want is integrated into these designs. So we're very in tune with what people need, what people want, who the users are, and what the requirements are. You mentioned a program, understanding what people want. We do have fees proposed in our proposal to do that, to work with the staff.
To help us figure out what we need
understand
and what people want.
What we want, what are the requirements? What is the program we're building? What is this design going to be composed of? You also mentioned, survey, public outreach. We do have some time in there. Fred will do his thing. He's got some survey data collection time accounted for in there, a little bit of public outreach. So it's very important that we understand those things too. And it may go back years, but we want to find the most recent data we can. If there's a way we can supplement some of that, we will. But absolutely, gathering all the intel that we can on what people want, what people need is a big part of it. Cost, absolutely. Phasing, again, is something that we do on so many of our projects. All of our master plan communities are phased. We're very in tune with how that happens from a permitting perspective and from a construction perspective. We do that all day long. So that's very realistic. I think, that's probably the only way to go. And looking at this site, is 15 acres is a substantial amount of land. You can do whatever you want there. We can make it happen. But we will design it in such a fashion so that we can logically partition it up into phases that can give you immediate use and can also set you up for the right construction, staging, and sequencing for the next phase, whether it be a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever. And then, another thing to consider there with those phases is that things change over time. We have a great master plan. 2 years down the road, you get ready to do phase 2 or 3. There might be different ideas. We go back to the drawing board and address a changing, evolving program at that point. So, the point is that we're very flexible as designers, and we have to be, because we're working for you. You know what you want better than we do. It's our job to find out what that is and make it happen for you.
One of the problems I've got is, when I was in this business, is phasing, because it confuses people. Because I'm assuming that we're not going to have an assessment and bill everybody. If it's $1 million, we have 10,000 users, everybody puts up $1,000. We're not going to do that. So it's going to probably be a bond, some type of a loan. So if you do it 10 years, 12 years, 15-year loan, and you're going to phase to avoid the cost, your next phase is going to be in 15 years. Otherwise, you're going to be doubling up or staggering it. So I get problems when we talk about phasing. If you're going to do it, do it.
Well, and I think we just don't know that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but you may come back and say, hey, it's all in and it's more cost effective to do it all at once or phase. So
exactly-
I don't know, but
Yeah, that's
we,
exactly.
that's solutioning. We're not there yet. So,
Well, my point is that if you're going to do a bond, which I'm assuming you will, or otherwise you're going to be looking at an assessment, and I guarantee you this won't get off the ground if we're talking assessment. I'd much rather see, and I think it's much more cost effective to do it, at least the majority of it, the big hit right at the beginning and be done with it.
Yeah.
And make every age group feel that they got something
Right.
out of it.
Yeah. Well, you have to do it that way, or else we're getting a situation where the community's split and we can't do that. So ultimately,
Well, I had one other-
yeah, go ahead.
What perks are available from either the state or federal government in the way of grants for this?
Well, I think Fred may actually speak on that a little bit, and we want Jim to talk a little bit too. There may be some possibilities there for trying to secure some funds and.
But are they restricted?
Finding some money for you guys to be
Are
able to
there
do this.
are some unrestricted funds? Because last thing we want to do is go out and get a $500,000 $1 million grant and we have all of Lehigh using this facility.
Right. Well, all of these things would take obviously a lot of due diligence and research, but if there are possibilities out there, it's a good chance we can find those for you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
in order to be successful on a project of this nature, we have to start off asking the residents what they want. For the 4 or 5 of us to tell them what we're going to give them is a recipe for failure. Secondly, we have such a large residential area here that we need to have in the back of our mind, once we get going in here, the possibility of arranging transportation for both the youngsters who are too young to drive and the oldsters who are too old to drive. Getting them to the recreation center where they can do their knitting and their card playing or their basketball or whatever. It's the transportation aspect, I think, is very important.
Yeah, well, that's something we can definitely.
Bill, if they can get across that roundabout at Griffin Drive and make it to the park, they already won half the battle.
Say again there, Ed. What's
I
that?
said, if they make it through crossing the roundabout without getting killed, they've won half the battle.
Well, if we have some professional drivers, it might be a little easier.
So I think what we're looking for today, in order to get to the next step, which we've talked about this for years. So in order to get to the next step, to understand feasibility and cost and everything else, we need to engage someone like Waltrip. And the estimate that we're looking for approval is the 22.5, and that's in the item. And you can see what the deliverable would be. So it would be the master plan, cost estimate, and then coordination on the development and execution strategy. Is that in summary? That's what we get for the 22.5.
A lot of other details that go into all of that, including programming, including showing everyone comparative imagery. We've talked about what Timberlakes has. We want to be able to show some comparative data. We've got a lot of things in mind about what you may need or what you may want to see to give you peace of mind and reassurance about moving forward. We want to cover all the bases for you.
And just so I'm clear, like at the end of this time period with the 22.5, we will have everything we need to gain approval and to start construction. I mean, of course, there's a bidding process.
This is preliminary. You got to go through design phase.
That's
You got
correct.
design first.
Yeah, no,
This is just preliminary.
the
These are
Competitive
masters.
Consultants Negotiation Act has thresholds. And if it's a planning or studying activity under $35,000, we can enter into this contract negotiating solely with Waltrip. If it goes over that cost, we have to
Then we
put
go
out
to the
requests for
bidding phase.
qualifications. And when you get to the planning study and the master concept plan,
Yeah.
and after that, you have a project scope and size. If you're gonna hire engineers and landscape architects, mappers.
Yeah, I'm not talking about all that. I'm just saying that
Then you have to go to the
Yeah,
competitive
right, no, I
design
understand that.
negotiation for that actual design.
what I was saying is when we come out of this, we will have everything we need in order to proceed to the next phase.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
This should come up with a master plan that we can pick and
The
choose
plan.
and modify.
Right.
That this is what we want to go to a design with, whether it be
Yes.
one phase, two phases, or
Got
three
it.
phases.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Well, I've got other questions. If I didn't realize we were going to go this far. I didn't understand one thing in your proposal, and I haven't seen one for years. I've been out. What is, I've got professional consultant 1 through 20. What is
The
a
rate sheet?
What is a PCI, a PC2, a PC2?
Those are our codes, all of our.
I've never heard of such a thing.
What their hourly billable rates are. And that's part of our standard.
Which of these are PEs?
I would have to look at it. The PEs are coded, for a licensed PE, you're probably looking at anything from 140, 160 an hour.
No, I don't mean that. I mean on your deal as a professional consultant, 12, for example, does that start the PE range?
No, it just depends. Some of that depends on years, qualifications, experience. So it isn't necessarily broken up by PE, LA planning. It's broken up by
Okay, so
experience and
this
what we charge clients.
So then this is a blend. It
Yeah.
could be landscape consultants. It could be anybody. It's
Exactly.
not just professional engineers and or technicians or design techs.
Yeah. It's our entire company. Everybody bills out at some rate. These are the rates that each individual would get assigned based on their experience and licensing.
And then expert consultant, I assume that is one of the above in a legal standing or a legal position.
Yeah, that would be for like expert testimony
Okay,
and
that's what I
witnesses and
thought.
stuff like that.
And then admin, what's that, office people?
Yep, coordination, permit coordinators, those kind of things. Yeah, exactly.
But what you're proposing is on a, what is it, lump sum or a?
Lump sum not to exceed. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have a couple of tasks for extra hourly, not to exceed. So,
Mhm.
if we run through those tasks and don't meet that maximum, we don't charge you.
Can you tell us just really quick, on average, your, percentage of your projects that come in on time, on budget, without, client, change controls that put you outside of control?
Yeah, that's a good, I can answer for planning, but this is more relevant for you to answer on this one probably.
On budget, that's our job. That's what we do.
So what do
We
you,
would not still be in this business if we did not do that very well.
Well, keep in mind, you got two things that are not associated with this phase that usually control what you're worried about.
Mhm.
One, permitting and bureaucrats, and two, contractors. Those will get you more of the problems you've got than anything.
Well, and I didn't expect for them to tell me that 50% of the time they come in on time, on budget. So that's kind of a softball I just threw out there, so.
yeah, sorry.
I would say that part of our process that is also included in this proposal includes very thorough review of the design concepts by our engineering team and by all of our landscape architecture staff. So we realize that a great design, a great concept is no value to you if it's not constructible, it's not permittable. So Mr. Inc. here, with his civil engineering expertise, that's one of his primary roles in this job, is to look at it from an engineering perspective and make sure that what we're proposing is permittable and is constructible. So, again, we can't give you something that doesn't work. That's no good for anybody.
I have one more final question. So coming through design, when you're going into execution or build, does your firm take, are you driving construction, or are you subbing this out? What percentage?
They bid it.
We have a, what we call a construction administration package, and that really consists of three primary components. We're not contractors.
Okay.
So what we do initially, once the construction plans are completed and once all the permits are received and approved, we can assist with bidding. We can solicit bids for all the different contractors, all the different trades, and actually provide bid comparisons of all those different bid submissions. And we can help you select the best contractors that are right for your job. And a lot of that may be personality. It may be based on their schedule. It may be based on their price and so many other factors. So once the contractors are all decided on and they have their contracts, we go to work. We're not construction managers. We can't set their schedule. We can't make you've got to be here tomorrow. That's not our role. Our role is to make sure that the plans are implemented as designed and as permitted. So quality control and making sure that they stay on the tracks with the train and everything goes right all the way through construction. The third major component of our construction services is certification. And that's something that every agency requires. The county, the city, whoever the permitting authority is, they require our John Hancock on the entire project at the end. And if it's by phase, then it's by phase. Once everything is done correctly per permit and we sign off on it, then the county or the city or whoever we may be working for at the time, then they can do their inspection and then they approve it and we're all done.
All right. I may have missed it, but what's your delivery date?
We don't have one right now. We've not set on that. I think once we actually have a contract, we can all talk about schedule and expectations at that point, but we are ready to go.
Can you give us an idea of what an average timeframe would be for this, for what you have in your estimate and based the scope of work that we're talking about?
I'd say 6 to 8 weeks at least, and it really depends a lot on the feedback and the collaboration that we get from the Gateway folks. Very collaborative process. So, it's involved, and, we don't want to speed things along so fast that we miss things and we don't do it right and provide a quality design.
All right. Thank you.
I was just thinking, I know we did a survey before. However, things do change and people's needs are different. So if maybe Chris could pull up that survey, I think we did it last year. Just, and I think when we sent out to all residents asking what they like, and maybe Chris could incorporate when he's meeting with the HOAs about this. So the HOA board presidents can start having conversations with their residents. And if any information in the survey, if can be provided so they can distribute that way too.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think it's going to be too difficult to land on, 10 or 12, 15 items that are amenable for everyone. Now, you're not going to please everyone. So I think if we can come up with something that is beneficial of the community, that we can come close on, and that is comparable to other communities in the area. So that's, kind of what we're trying to do, is make sure we're, either equal to or above others, because our job is to increase property value. And so, okay, anything final before we proceed? So do I have a motion to approve? Yes, Tony.
Just briefly, if the motion to approve would include making necessary adjustments to the contract terms to be consistent with Florida law. There's some provisions in there that are not consistent with the governmental body, like the Prompt Payment Act, other issues about indemnification, who owns the plans. And we've made some suggested changes. Brian, I don't know if you've had a chance to share them yet with the folks in Waldrop.
Yeah.
We're glad to receive your markups on the terms.
Okay.
No problem.
Thank you.
So we'll have that under consideration.
And I'll make the motion that we proceed.
I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second. Chris, will you call the vote, please?
Sure, we'll call the vote. Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Mr. Geppert,
Yes.
Mr. Guy,
Yes.
Mr. Tinkle,
Yes.
Mrs. Walsh.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you for coming in. We appreciate your time and
Our
effort.
pleasure.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for
We
having
look
us.
forward to seeing what you turn around in 8 weeks. Okay, great. So we've gone through, Tony, you've gone through district management report. For go to our action items. Is it 4B? You want to take us through those?
Sure, the pond bank washout repairs, Brian?
Yeah.
Yes, this is the pond bank washout repairs. We originally had to schedule last year, but unfortunately due to the high water, we didn't get around to it. So we identified same ponds, pretty much getting them done. The total cost is $13,000 for this. will come out of our pond bank annual maintenance. I'm hoping we can start in the next 30 days, but we keep getting this rain. It's one of those. I know Mr. Tinkle's identified a pond over there that we kind of got on the top priority list to get done for the gentleman, and I was heading that way, but now we're still, hopefully.
I think one thing we want to emphasize on the point repairs
Yes.
was some of these, if you just looked at those pictures that you provided in the board book, it'd be a question as to how did these not make it up into the phase 1 ponds, or at least the phase 2 ponds, instead of being a phase 3 pond. But
Yeah,
it's
most of
point,
these are
point issues.
point blank issues where certain ponds we haven't got done yet. So we're kind of doing what we call a repair fix until they get on their whole schedule list. Some of these I know in Gateway Greens, we have some over there and we have some just scattered throughout. They're minor repairs. I mean, you're looking like $1,500, $1,800. I think the most expensive one was $3,000, but the total cost was like $13,000.
Who's doing the work?
That'd be Matt Tyer.
Okay.
And he's going to use our TRM back here for some of these as well.
And then I saw one of them, and I couldn't tell by the photo because it didn't pan far enough. Most of them looked for to be residential access for
Yes.
somebody's backyard. I looked at one and it sure looked like it was along a wetland. If you pan through those, maybe I can pick it out. It's one of the ponds down in the south end by the industrial park or the commercial park. And that one kind of surprised me a little bit.
That's the one that is 79, I think.
Yeah, I think you may be right. It had looked like it had a wetland all the way around it, no houses, but
Okay.
The side that needs it is the side, this one here.
I don't think it's that one.
Yeah.
Well, it could be. I don't remember the number. I looked at it. I just didn't see any, what appeared to be any
But
houses.
Brian, we don't have any issues with easements or getting
No,
to these?
no.
Okay.
No.
I think that's the only one, the house on the outside.
Okay.
So do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
I'll make the motion. Oh, you made the motion?
That's what I was-
No, I was
He
looking for a
was
motion.
looking for one.
okay,
I'll make the
second
motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Chris, if you'll call.
Mr. Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Geppert?
Yes.
Mr. Guy?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkle?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0, pond bank repair.
I do have a question. So I did notice that, I just wrote down when you mentioned it, that this was already originally approved in 2019. Is that the procedure that we're going to be following? Anything that was previously approved for the previous year and for some reason we weren't able to do, are we going to be bringing those things to the board? Because I want to make sure we don't cause delay. If this was already approved, it's the same amount, we just didn't do it because it was weather related, why is it coming back to the board and creating another delay? Does it make sense?
I don't think we ever got this far. I don't remember a price tag.
We had them individually
Well, because
and they were
I
scheduled.
was gonna say,
throughout.
because it did
70.
say here, it said there was appeal was previously approved. So that means you must have a price.
We had the
and-
money in there and it's allocated to do it.
Yeah.
Like I said, unfortunately, due to the high water, we didn't get to it. So basically, it was a new budget started in October, so we're on the new budget.
New
So I-
budget cycle.
It's pretty much because the new budget cycle.
But the solution is the same. Is what?
Solution's the
yeah.
same. That did
Yeah.
not
No
change.
changes in solution.
Only difference is in October, we start a new budget. So this is a new budget dollar item.
Okay, who's doing 4C?
I have one more thing left that unless you want to.
No,
do
go
the
ahead.
next
If
board
you need,
meeting.
yeah, no, that's fine.
You guys, it's tree maintenance contracts. I have L, I brought
Oh,
in
yeah.
Jim. I know if y'all met Jim Kennedy. He's the new Parks and Recs manager along with maintaining Mainscape. I was gonna let them come in here and give you a short, because we've done some due diligence with Anchor and Superior and some of the other ones.
Landscaping, I mean, the tree.
We were-
service.
The tree service, I'll let Jim and L come up.
It was the lowest bidder and then, yeah.
For the record, Al Harris, Gateway Services, Natural Resources. Jim Kennedy, our new Parks and Recreation Landscaping Manager.
Right. And so I think, Bill, we're just looking for staff input based on the last meeting around the tree cutting services, because it was a low bidder. And we did not go with the low, we went with the medium. So we just got some
The
questions.
second one up, we didn't go with the highest, we didn't go with the lowest, we went with the second one up from the lowest. And one of the reasons is because, as you all know, I've been here working in this landscape for 14 years. they can't do it for that price.
But if they're contractually
did-
obligated to it,
You
what's,
can try, but it's up to you. And the other thing about the company, everybody's references were all good. Let's just start with that.
Yeah.
We did our diligence. We checked the references. Nobody said anything. The thing is if you look at what we've had to pay in the past, what we've been paying, and the job we're getting done, and then cut that in half, how are they going to do the same amount of work for half of the amount of money?
so what you're
It
saying is
doesn't
there's, based on their estimate and what we know from historical data, is that the cost to do that work is not in line with their estimate or
That's
their
correct.
proposal. So
And
the risk is, even though if it's contractually, if they're contractually obligated to fulfill that work, and because that's what it is, it's not, if they agree to that, they've got to get it done. If they don't,
You let them go.
then we let them go,
And then you
or
pay
you don't
more
pay
later.
them.
or you don't
Huh?
pay.
You don't pay them.
Well, you
That'll
have
be
to
a
pay,
Tony, that'll be a Tony thing.
that would, yeah, that would be.
But that's the risk.
That'll be a Tony
What
thing.
staff is saying is there's a risk.
Toby's eyes light up.
The
Or
other,
Tony shakes his head.
the other side of this is, the lowest bid company is, and I don't know how to say this and be politically correct, is not very responsive to your phone calls and emails.
Based on staff's experience.
Correct.
Okay.
Just one thing, this item is not on the agenda.
It was a follow-up from,
It's on the agenda packet and it's not.
I don't think we're taking action for that.
Oh, okay.
We were looking for staff input in order for us to make a decision, because we were going to bring L back here, and then I think the next meeting, we were going to bring the item back as an.
Clarification.
And I might even point out that Jim, as our new landscape person, he's only been here a couple of weeks. But I filled in after Glenn was let go. I took it over again, finished it again. Now Jim is stepping in. So he has tried contacting this company, if you would like to let them know your experience with that.
Sure. I'm a certified horticulturalist, so I do know some of the things that they're going to be up against. I've been an arborist in the past. I reached out to Superior several times. I've got notes here of how many times. About 7 times, actually. And within their bid, I did find an email that I sent out, and I finally got a number. Lady called me from Miami. All the numbers are from Miami. There's no local numbers there.
Are they based out of Miami? Or
well, I went on Google and looked for Superior Landscaping, and it said they were closed.
Okay.
The local address. But when I spoke to Marco, he said that no, it was actually a place they work out of, which is over off of Metro. So Arcos, I think is the name of the road. But anyway, he called me back finally that same day and said he would be out here the next day. Well, at 1 o'clock, I called him, left him a message, and that proceeded with the next 6 or 7 calls. I have still yet to have a call back. I told him, I was like, and this was being considered for some extra work that we had, removing some trees. So I took the lowest 3 bids, tried to get some, response from them. And I told him, I was like, if you don't respond to me, I'm taking you off this list. And I'm not going to keep working and, and beating my head against this wall. If you're not going to respond to me, I have work for you.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do it, fine. And then I also reached out to Anchor, and I discovered that Anchor emails were going to my junk mail. So that some of that anger was not their fault. But also, I asked them for proposals for this extra work that I was doing these 3 companies for. And it was a week later before they sent the guy out. And then that guy had to go to another guy to do it. And then they sent me a estimate for 3 trees, not 5 trees, because he said he already had approval for the other 2 trees. I checked with Laura, and she actually declined or canceled the bid, their PO because of non-response. It had been 3 months since she issued the PO and nothing.
And that was Anchor?
That was Anchor. That
Okay,
was,
so we had Superior was the low bid. Anchor was
they were the third lowest. So it's Anchor, I mean, it was Superior, Personal Touch, and then Anchor. And Anchor is the current contractor.
and so, but we're having issues with Anchor now, is what you're saying.
Right,
Okay.
right. To try to get them, I mean, they were,
Okay,
these
so
stumps
what-
that were up there.
So Jim, at this point, what is staff still standing by their original recommendation?
My recommendation would be Personal Touch. I called him, he came out 2 hours later, I had the estimate that afternoon. He was very responsive, responsible, and he also lives here in Gateway, so.
And what was he, the high bid?
The middle.
He was
The
the
middle.
second lowest.
He was okay, second lowest, okay.
Yeah, which was double. And I also when talking to Anchor, Tommy, you know, and he said they lost their butts on this contract. Because I asked him point blank, certain things out here that were not done.
Yeah.
And trying to find out when they were last done. They didn't know. Yeah. I don't know if we have any records that I could find when it was done, tree trimming, palm trimming, all these things that, and we just lost our, well, then you need to bid it right. You can't tell me 11 months into the contract that now you can't perform. That's not.
So, okay.
Nice try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we've all worked with people that, well, if you've had existing contracts and that provider felt like they weren't making their margin, their quality of service drops.
Sure.
Right. So I'm going to circle back on this, Jim, and in your opinion, because you did say you were an arborist. Is it still most advantageous for us to outsource this, or is there an opportunity to maybe bring this in-house? Would it cost more to hire someone and you know, I don't know what equipment we would need, but and have a dedicated resource? And again, I have no idea.
You don't have any of the equipment.
Yeah, without having any of the equipment, the insurance would go through the roof.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's all. I mean, once you say insurance, then that's
it's outrageous. Okay. If you go over a certain, like 50
Yeah,
feet.
you're putting them in with the chainsaw in the crown of an oak tree.
Yeah, no, I get it. So
And
I just wanted to ask the question.
$500,000
You know?
in equipment just to start.
Well, Jim, thank you, Elle, thank you both for coming in. And
You
so
bet.
Chris, we would expect this to be on the
Thank you.
agenda, the next, and then update staff's recommendation. And if anything changes, you know, between now and then, I guess we'll figure it out. Okay, thank you both.
I do have a few things for Brian before we move it to the next one. Because
Sure, you wanna-
I don't want to wait for supervisor comment and he'll be here and I won't have an answer.
Well, I mean, that's fine. So Brian, if you want to
Is that
step back
okay?
up.
All right, so I had sent an email to staff probably about 2 weeks ago in regards to aerators. I know Magnolia had an aerator that we were paying for electricity, and we received a reimbursement because it was a responsibility of the district to take care of that. So, and same thing happened with the lift station. And I know when it happened with the lift station, I think staff was proactive and he actually went and looked at all other HOAs that were overpaying and issue a refund. I asked Elle to put a report for me, which she sent it to me last week, and it looks like we have 13 other communities that are paying for our electrical bill that we are responsible for. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if Brian can speak to it in more in detail, because I know she put in a few notes and it looked like some were already moved to a GSCD account. However, I don't think any refunds or any communication went out to those HOAs. And I think maybe it was 5. I know Stony Brook, Daniels, Hampton Park, and then one more, Gateway Greens. Yeah, so we all.
Are these
Here,
Gateway Greens?
Yeah.
Aerators?
here's the issue we found out. Here's the issue.
So, yeah.
Here's the issue Elle found out, and she can come up here because she knows a lot more about it. But apparently when the developers built some of these, like over in Daniels Preserve, you have the aerator plus you have a fountain that's on the same electrical meter. It's all going to the same one. It was built that way and we kind of inherited. It's going to cost us a lot of money to come in here and have additional meters set just for the aerators. Because what you might do.
Kill your cost.
Yes, you will. So this was going to come up in a board meeting coming
Why
up
don't we
where
just flip it over to us and have them pay, like the streetlights do, pay $6, $7 a month that they pay us to supplement their share of the cost for the aerator.
I agree eventually, but then we have some communities that are overpaying for 10, 15 years. So before they're gonna put any money to us, we actually owe them money.
Tony, got a problem there.
If they haven't noticed it for 15 years, I don't think it's a problem for them.
Well,
Well, here's the
I
issue.
don't think you can go
He-
back.
he-
you can only go back 4 years,
4
maybe,
years. yeah, that's
Okay,
what I thought.
so
maybe 4.
so maybe you credit the 4 and going forward, we'll take the maintenance
Did they ask for the
perpetuity.
credit, or are we just going to tell them that we owe money?
Excuse me?
Have they asked for the credit?
Well, I prefer that we don't have to pay interest and attorney's fees when they ask for it. I prefer that we do good faith and say,
Well,
here's
just
the
fix it
mistake
from
for
today
our.
on. If they're not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
What are we talking about, dollar value?
How much does it cost to run your fountain? And aerator is average of $45 to $50.
The fountain is about 4 times as
month?
much,
A month.
And a fountain?
4 times as much. And then what we did is we actually, it depends if you run it
A
24/7.
fountain costs $200 a month.
Your aerators are a lot more
And-
expensive than
and-
Pelican
and
aerators.
what
We don't
aerators-
spend 30 a month.
Yeah, aerators, because we did the study. So aerators,
Ours are over.
aerators are 24/7, so it's around $46 or $40 a month.
Ours
The
is
fountain
24/7
from
also.
7 AM to 9 PM, $250, $350 per
It
fountain.
must be the horsepower, huge horsepower.
That and the age of
Well,
it.
mine is only
sorry.
1.5.
You would have the horsepower and plus you'd have the age of it.
Well,
Like you
ours
said,
are all
it's just
new,
not
so maybe
efficient.
that's why.
You
they're
have
not
new
cheap.
aerators with
We're not-
maybe
we're not
less
spending
electric
30 a
use
month
than something that's been out there
for
10 plus years.
And we go 24/7.
Well, it sounds like me, the issue is not the aerator, the issue is the fountain.
It's gonna be more
That's
for
where
us.
the big bucks are
That's
at.
the bucks.
There's more to consider here than just flipping the account over to Gateway to pay. Yes, I did just send in 6 or 8
Correct.
that I said, these should be coming to Gateway. I did not see it on the FPL invoices. There are several more, so we went out double checking again. Actually, this isn't the first time this exercise has taken place. But with that being said, it's more than just flipping them over to a Gateway account. Many of these banjo poles, the breaker boxes, the meter can, they're all in disrepair and need to be replaced. They're so rusted, I don't want to reach in and flip a breaker. And sometimes when you go out to find out why is the aerator not running, what's the first thing you do? You look at the GFI and you check the breaker. So, if the GFI is okay and I reach in
And
the
you're
10
not
rusty
staying in your
box to
water.
flip the breaker, lovely. And some of them are almost in the water. I have one in Stony Brook that's leaning about 30
So we need,
degrees.
so
I
we need
have-
an estimate of repair.
I have an estimate for repair, $2,300 per. We have 34. Most of them, however, do not belong to you. Most of them belong to the HOA, the current meters that they are on and the current poles that they are attached.
Well, the only thing we should be talking about is what's ours.
Do you remember the
We
cost?
have our aerators.
That's all we should talk about.
Well, wait a minute.
But it
A
needs to
large
be, it
percent
needs,
are HOA.
it
Well,
needs
she's
to
saying
be-
it's our aerator is connected to those meters.
exactly. So that means we need to install a meter and the cost of that. Do you remember the cost that we had for 83? They had to install meters side by side to actually split. So I think Bentley came over, installed one, and then they split, and then we took over from there. And if the panel on the fountain side was bad and rusty, that's on the HOA. Who cares?
Absolutely, absolutely.
But what I
So we
think it
split
is,
it. We cover the cost of the new box.
yes, because it's
And then the
ours.
HOA covers the one that's
Their
connected to the
box.
fountain. That's,
Mhm.
so that's their responsibility.
Yeah.
So either way, we're still spending the money. I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
You say 2,300 for 34 units? $70,000?
That's right, to replace the breaker boxes. There's 14 of them out there
Well, that price sounds
Really?
reasonable for all that, yeah.
there's 14 of them out there that are in
But they're
really
all
bad
all
shape.
34 are neat.
They are not,
No,
not all
no.
34. I have 14 of them out there currently in very bad shape.
So you're looking at
However,
30,000.
only about half of those actually belong to Gateway.
So the issue is going to be we'll go ahead and do ours first. The cost that's about 20 to 23. Between that cost of that and Bentley to do the work. Then you come into the other half is since we don't own those, the boxes itself, are we going to go ahead and just replace them because they are bad, but our areas are running out of that.
or
We don't own the electric box, or do we go ahead and have FPL come out and set a no meter and our own pole, and we have our own totally separate?
That's what it sounds like to me is the best way to do it.
It's going to be time consuming because with FPL, but that would probably be the best solution to
I
do.
think it is.
And the
too.
second thing is, we don't have enough money in the budget now to currently maintain our aerators through the rest of the budget cycle or through the contract cycle, I should say.
Would it be more,
where,
By
would it be,
maintaining, you mean pay for them to run electrically?
no, I mean
To
to
maintenance.
replace the aerators and regular maintenance.
would
Oh,
FPL,
replace compressors, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I know FPL does offer the service to come in and actually tells us exactly what the aerator will run each with X amount of diffuser and so forth per month. Would it be beneficial to us to just credit those HOAs so then we wouldn't have to do anything? So let's see if each HOA was $40 or $50 a month an aerator, we just keep everything as is. We just issue them a check going forward, so nothing has to be split per se. The only thing it's gonna get sticky is when it comes to the actual panels and so forth, who is gonna be responsible for repair, given that there is a cost on that.
I think we ought to split them.
Split it now.
Yeah, whatever, cut the baby now if it's our responsibility.
Because if there's an issue
You mean
somewhere down the
on
road,
meter basis?
Yeah, rather than,
if there's ever an issue with the fountain or the aerator,
Right.
then there's,
let's
Yeah,
just keep
yeah.
it nice and clean.
The suggestion would be to pull the money out of the plant replacement program to cover it. Because we have about 25, 30,000 in plant replacement program.
that's a mouthful.
Plant- I would pull that money out of that to cover this, because this to me is a safety concern, especially some of them in Stony Brook where you can't lock them because the bottom part is rusted out.
Yeah.
You can't even put a lock on it, so a kid can't open it up and you have a live panel.
Yeah, that's risk and liability there. Okay.
Is breaker in there?
Yes,
Can you lock them? You can't
No.
any other state.
No.
not
You
at this
can't lock
point.
it with a breaker in there, no way.
They have rusted to the point you can't lock the bottom of the.
Some are
Metal
actually
cabinet
missing
more.
the inner bottom, so when you open the panel,
Yeah.
it's straight wires and breaks. And I have seen that at Stony Brook about 6 months ago. Like the middle panel, it's gone because the rust just ate about 4 inches of it.
So is somebody going to be doing this reparation estimate?
We already have estimates back from both Gray Bar and Bentley to do the work.
No, I'm talking about the back money that
no,
is
we're
being
So-
not.
claimed.
So
We
let's
have not.
do this.
Oh, I didn't ask that.
So let's do this, Chris. This is an item
That's gonna
we'll
come
need to
up.
put on the
Yeah.
next meeting. We'll need to get an estimate and approach. I think what we're saying is we would much rather split
Yes.
Yeah.
and fund that way. And then we'll need staff's recommendation on how to, if we split, then we've taken care of the billing issue. Now,
Current.
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 Now, if there's
Going forward.
going forward,
And then also, I did notice in the report, it also works the other way around. It looks like we are paying for a few HOAs for the irrigation and their lighting. So, so let's just hope.
What are you talking about?
Mhm.
Paying for what? What's she
Yeah.
talking about?
There are some other units
Just that.
out there that we are paying the bill on, but there is HOA irrigation or something else hooked into our meter and they're pulling power.
That would be the streetlights over in Gateway Greens.
And then also Hampton Park.
Streetlights in Gateway
No,
Greens.
no.
where at?
Hampton
Oh,
Park is the
Hampton
one that I
Park.
saw.
Oh, well,
No.
Hampton Park, yes, we've known about that for some
Well,
time.
so if it's good, works both ways,
Uh,
no longer pay for them.
In Gateway Greens, the only one is where the aerators that are on like 128 and 125 are behind the Cypress Link sign.
Mhm.
I believe they're coming off the Monuments Tower.
We went through something very
That
similar.
explains one thing.
Ed, we went
Okay.
through something very
I don't
similar
want that one 'cause you
in
know-
Pelican
I wondered
Preserve,
why, yeah.
where you have a hodgepodge of opportunity to bill people. And I'm talking from an FPL perspective. And they would send the bills to whoever would pay them. And oftentimes, the meter number and the address do not line up. And we had to go through and are still going through since June, this is 8 months of this, to get all the accounts reconciled and changed. And that requires you to physically go out and look at the meter, compare it to the address, and then look at the FPL bill and see who should be paying. Because we also had irrigations, we had lift stations, we had HOA items like fountains and stuff.
Lift stations?
Yeah, lift stations too. Some of those were improperly built. So you just, FPL just, whoever pays it,
They
they're
don't
good.
care.
They're done.
They don't care.
So it does require quite a bit of work. And I've been working with Georgia over here in the bonds group. And we finally have got Pelican 99% correct.
well, I
99%.
think the good news is, once we finish this exercise, we will have a cost save to the HOAs.
Absolutely. In a couple of ways, Doug. First of all, if we should be paying it and the HOA is paying it,
Yeah.
they're also paying state taxes and stuff that we don't pay. So there was a big savings for us where Castle was paying an awful lot of bills that should have been coming over here. So we saved the population base, the residents, money, just getting them paid properly, regardless of who actually wrote the
Well,
check.
I was checking electrical stuff at the HOA for some years, and you can understand an FPL bill, more power to you.
Absolutely right.
I'll tell you, I've never seen anything like it. They've got meter numbers. They don't even know where in the heck their
And
their
you can't
lights
find
are
all
at.
the meters.
We
We-
can find by the location.
Yeah,
We
it's
still
very
have 5
difficult.
meters. We do not know we're paying for them, but we don't know what they.
Well,
But FPL will come if you call, because that's what I had to do. FPL, you call and you place an order and they'll come in and they will find
And
it for
locate it
you
for you?
and they'll do the locate.
We haven't
they'll
gotten that
meet you.
far. We're getting close.
But you can do that, yeah.
well, Gateway Greens paid for Fairway Lakes Office Parks lights, street lights, 16 street lights for 20 years. And we got 3 years credit.
Well,
Well,
we
let's-
haven't attacked streetlights yet. That's a whole other can of worms.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman,
Al,
Just for due
is
diligence,
that
Sonny,
report-
can
is
you
that
just look and
report
see what, if
complete,
we
or
had
you-
to reimburse,
or you
what,
need
It's
more
very-
what would
it's
be
very
obligated for?
complete. If you would like the photos that go along.
I don't want the
with it.
photo.
it's
I
4
just,
years.
I just want to make sure it's complete and maybe you can pass it to Tony. Cause
Yes, you can send it out to Tony. It's absolutely complete. That's every aerator in all of the ponds that are required to have it, plus the 2 in Cypress Lakes that are not required. But we did put it in there for the help of the pond.
And let me just throw this out there. If we do determine that there is credits due, I think we should also look at, if we're splitting, if the HOA unit is in need of repair, we should probably go ahead and repair that and then subtract that from any credit that's due. We can, that way we're,
That sounds reasonable and
Yeah,
fair to the HOA.
yeah, and that way if we got people out there, we're
They're
doing.
there, right?
Yeah.
El, you said 25 and 125, 128. Is there a power cord coming? Because 125 is up to the north. Is there a power cord coming from the aerator
No.
back?
No, the aerator is behind, the compressor is actually right behind the Cypress Lakes
I
monument
know it.
sign.
But there's,
Both of the units are. The air hoses, the air lines literally run all the way around
Okay,
to
the-
the other pond.
okay.
So
All right.
that's why there's 2 compressors in the one box to run the pond that's way around the corner.
So that's a long airline,
It is that.
very long airline. Okay.
I wonder how much
I
life.
was always of the opinion it was connected to somebody's house and they didn't
Yeah.
know about it.
Oh, we had that.
You just have to maintain
We
it.
had ours.
I wonder how much pressure loss you have. Yeah, so, okay.
And then the
Ponds,
last
swimming
thing,
pool.
the last thing that I want, I did see when Ed was talking about, and I pulled up 79, and then I went back to pond standards, and all I see is that mulch there. Can you see it on the bank? Are we planning to contact the HOA? Are we planning to contact the homeowner? What are we doing with that? Because we're repairing an area that the homeowner is being illegally disposing of debris and garbage. And he's very,
You don't want to get me started on that, Claudia.
well,
Where's-
it's on the pond
I'm
standards.
serious.
I just want to know,
Where's-
what are
where-
we
where-
doing?
Where's this at?
I
Is this
can't
on one of the
pick and
pictures?
choose.
Oh, I
what
want us to
homeowners-
do all of it. I just noticed when Ed mentioned about the wetland, and I was like, well, let me
Chris,
look.
can you scan to that picture, please? Pond 79?
Yeah,
How are you getting?
Yeah, I saw the mulch.
yeah, I
So how
I
you
did
doing
what
that
Doug does. So
What
all the
page is
mulch,
it?
It's very first slide.
page 102.
Page 102.
There you go.
And it's this Daniels, right, as well?
That is Daniel's.
Because I remember visiting. Is this
That's
by,
one of the meters that we're talking about. right
Yeah,
back
it looks
there.
like yard clippings or leaves out of the
mulch? Well,
street.
that looks like mulch, red mulch all over.
I think it's
I don't know if that's
partially
mulch or-
lava rock,
I think
and some of
looks
it
like
is that
clippings
tree
out of the
that's there.
trees or out of the gutter.
That looks like
Awful
yard
dark.
waste.
to
That looks like yard waste.
Determine.
But that's behind a house.
Mm-hmm.
We can't
So
find
Chloe,
them, so
what's
we
your
can only
question?
shoot them.
So my question is, if we go and look back at the pond standards, and I just had it pulled it up here, it says, I think that we are to notify the county for the discharges. Is that what it?
I do notify Lee County of all illicit discharges.
So I just.
Have you had an issue with that location?
They had, no,
You have not had any issues with that location prior to?
no.
So I think if we go to repair, I think we just need to let them know that any debris or discharge is, is prohibited. And if it happens anymore, we'll report them. And
Yeah, technically it's littering. Also, we have a surface water management system rule. They can't put stuff in there.
so I think we should just let them know.
It's littering.
And I can't really tell what it is.
Or that we're gonna be there in 2 weeks, and if it's gone, we won't send you to jail.
Yeah, so if you look on, if you can just look on page 8 under pollution trash, the third and then the fourth bullet point, they're very clear. So if we just follow what's there, then we're good. But I would.
So here's, that's where it is. Looks like it's coming down. Maybe it rained.
Yeah, I see it now.
That's what Chris just said. Looks like. Wrong.
Okay.
Okay. So it may not be intentional. So, okay. Thank you both.
Well,
Appreciate it.
sometimes they are, sometimes they're not.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, if I may make a quick comment too, if we go in there and start putting a secondary box on and leaving one that's in disrepair and a safety hazard, I assume we should provide notification to the HOA of that or repair it while we're there, because if we leave it,
I think you just said we were going to repair it.
Yeah, that's what I would prefer, is that we repair it and either pull it out of any proposed credits, or just as we go in there, we can notify the HOA that, hey, there's a liability there, it needs to be replaced. Either you contract someone out, or we're going to go ahead and take care of it.
So we're going to put in a new one for ourselves, and we're going to repair theirs if necessary.
If there's a hazard.
If there's a hazard.
By repairing theirs, we're taking on a duty that we do not have. If you have no liability, if you have no duty.
Well, we need authorization.
Well, I guess the question is, why would you want, again, under Florida law, if you have no duty, you have no liability. And if it's an HOA box that is in disrepair, and they own it, control it, or that's their service, the district is taking on a liability that doesn't otherwise exist. Now, if you come to an arrangement where you have an agreement saying, we're not going to come after you, you're not going to come after us for any past due money. As we go in there, we will hire the contractor.
That might be the easiest way to do it.
Write it up, Tony.
Yeah, that might be the easiest way to do it.
That's what I would do.
Goes unpunished with you.
But again, our staff cannot do that. Our staff can only, electrician on staff can only do district work. Otherwise, you need a licensed electrical
We're
contractor.
talking about having Bentley or somebody do it.
Yeah, we would have Bentley do it anyway, right? Regardless. Okay. So we would have a contractor do it.
That could be, that could be, again.
So you need a release.
Well, an agreement.
Agreed.
An agreement, and I'll work with Chris and Brian on that.
Okay, so 4C, the Pelican Preserve Boardwalk rebuilding contract and contingency.
Is Mr. Foster on the line, Chris, or is Joe here?
We don't have anybody.
I do not see Mr. Foster on the line, and is Tetra Tech on the line? Okay.
Was Joe advised to be here, or?
Yes, he was informed of the meeting.
Can we kick him an email or text somebody?
I would be happy to if you.
Why do we need him?
That's what I was going to say. That's
Why do
what
we-
I read. Why do we
I
need
guess
it?
the question is, you have a recommendation from the Pelican Reserve Advisory Committee. The two recommendations are to reject the bid from Manhattan Road and Bridge as not being responsive. So the board needs to vote on that first, whether or not they accept that recommendation to reject the bid by Manhattan Road and Bridge as being non-responsive. And secondly, the board then has the option to accept the recommendation or not from PPAC as to awarding the work to Marine Contracting Group at the 994-690 number. And I don't know if any of the vendors are on the phone or available, if they want to speak also before the board has any board discussion. Or Chris or
Speak now or forever hold your peace. Anybody
or
online?
Mr. Measy has any comment.
I don't know if any of the vendors are on. I've got a caller 2, 3, and 4. Could that be Mr. Foster or anybody representing Marine Contracting or Stokes? Or Manhattan?
This is Ryan Medola. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And Ryan, you're with Marine Contracting Group?
Ron, he's there? Hello, Ron, are you there?
Hello, this is Ryan Medola with Marine Contracting Group. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here on the line. I wasn't sure if I was muted or not, but yeah, I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
Now, I attended the feedback meeting. I witnessed what they did. I guess we'll take make a motion to accept their judgment in Manhattan, whatever the right words are.
Yeah, to reject
To
the
reject
Manhattan.
Manhattan, whatever Tony said.
So when you do
Nothing
this in two
responsive.
pieces.
Yes.
So first one is to reject.
So that's the first motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Chris, if you can call the vote.
Mr. Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Geppert?
Yes.
Mr. Guy?
He's muted.
Thumbs up.
We got you muted,
Yes.
Bill. Now you're live. Okay.
Mr. Tinkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay, motion to deny or reject the bid for Manhattan passes 5-0.
Okay, now I'll make a motion. If there's any other questions on that.
No.
Now I'll make a motion to accept the P-PAC recommendation that Marine Contracting be awarded the contract.
Now, are you going to include the extra 10,000 or is that going to be a separate motion?
What's the extra 10?
Well, they said they wanted an extra 10,000 to make it 109, 104 something.
I would suggest that's a separate.
I think it's a
that's more of
separate.
Budgetary item.
Yeah, I think it's a separate item.
Okay.
I'll second Mr. Geppert's motion.
So we have a motion and a second. Chris?
Motion is second. Mr. Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Geppert?
Yes.
Mr. Guy?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Walsh?
Yes.
And that $10,000 contingency, we did put in there on top of the contract amount in case anything unforeseen. And there's also some restoration cost related to material storage and access that's being provided by Sienna.
So it's a budgetary item.
It's budgetary, and the license agreement for Sienna is the next item on the board.
I said so. Thank you.
Thank you for approving it.
Thank you, and I'll be in touch tomorrow.
Is there not an issue on a land easement or something?
That's the next item, as Chris mentioned.
That's the, that's 4D, approved Pelican Preserve license agreement for temporary staging area.
And this is, Chris prepared this draft. I've edited the draft, another version of it. And so then Chris put the caveat language in there to authorize the chairman to execute an agreement contingent upon legal review and approval by district council. And I've had the opportunity again last week, and I sent Chris my suggested edits. So I think the board action would be to authorize the chair to sign a staging and access agreement, license agreement with the Sienna at Pelican Preserve Condo Association in substantially final form, subject to council revisions and acceptance by Sienna.
And I make such a motion.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Geppert?
Yes.
Mr. Guy?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Walsh?
Yes.
And part of that approval includes what Chris outlined very clearly in the executive summary about the landscape restoration and
The fee.
damage.
Well, most of the components of that were covered back when we were going to do it last September. It's just now it's a new date and a new company.
And we also,
Substantially, it really hasn't changed.
Okay, very good.
and we sent a copy of that draft license agreement also over to the folks at Sienna, their management company and their HOA president to make sure, but all the things that came up last May when you were talking to
Yep.
them have been put in iterations in
And
that
I've been in
agreement.
communication with them, and they're happy that if the board approves what they're going to have in the past, that we just now do it this year instead of last year.
Very good.
So
Thank you.
we're all good.
Okay, so moving on to consent agenda. Anything to be pulled for A and B?
No.
No.
Nope. Motion to approve.
So made. Second.
Motion and a second. Chris?
Ms. Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Geppert?
Yes.
Mr. Guy?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So Bill, I'll start with you. Any supervisor comments? Bill, do you have any supervisor comments before we go?
No, sir, I have no comments.
Thank you. Flavia, I'll start with your end.
Okay, I just wanted to see, Doug, you had mentioned probably the first or second meeting that you, when it came to the employee and their reviews, you want to maybe have a liaison from the board work. Is that something that, have you implemented that yet? Or it's something that we put in the back burner? Because I know some reviews are coming up.
Yeah, let's circle back with Laura on that.
Okay.
'Cause I think she's kind of handling some of the employee reviews. So can we table that for, I'll follow up with Laura.
Okay.
But it is, I think it is coming up. So
Okay,
I think it is a good idea.
All right, and the second thing is, I know we talked about this before, and I think actually at one point, didn't Imprimark took care of all the HR things for us before?
Some things. But I think as we have renegotiated the contract, some of that responsibility has been pulled out. I couldn't tell you exactly what they.
And the
All of
HR
it?
was mostly payroll.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, all of it, yeah, okay, like employee relations per se.
Yeah, I don't think Imprimark has any responsibility with any employee relations activities today.
And then just going back what Laura had mentioned, that she, a lot of what she's doing now, it's HR related and it's not.
It was. A lot of it was reviewing handbooks and policies and payroll and that type of stuff. The last stuff that she gave, the majority of that work has been done, and they have a resource now that they can go to for HR related activities. But it doesn't solve the problem of having a resource, a staff resource to be able to handle. It still kind of falls under her jurisdiction, even though that's not really part of her job description.
Okay.
It's a gap today. Now, and what we can do is if we need more, I would have Laura be prepared to kind of speak to where we're at from an HR perspective, internal, what the gaps are. And if there's any recommendation. I mean, I always felt like there should be a staff member. It should be an office manager, partial responsibility. I don't think it should be Laura's per se, because she's more operations and finance, not HR. It's a different skill set.
And that's what I thought she wanted it to be. She wanted to somewhat to stay separate.
Yeah.
And, okay.
Yeah, it's not in her job description. She's taken it on as part of, I think, it's operational improvement, but I don't think she wants to take that responsibilities on.
I said that.
Yeah. In a
All
nutshell.
right, that's all I have.
Okay, great. Mr. Tinkle.
Yeah, a couple things for Tony. Have we heard anything on the Comcast issue on the insurance with the pipe culvert?
No, nothing more, and I just need finalizing numbers so I can send that letter out, Chris. Chris has had extensive communications, the up and down,
And they switched us to another supposedly more responsive person and changed the staff responsibility, but it hasn't changed. We don't have a check or anything from their insurance company,
Okay.
either denying or accepting the claim.
yeah, I think it's at 10,000, it's 8,500, 10,000. I just want to clarify the number. So if you can just get that to me, I'll kick that letter out.
Then the other one
I
is,
just have fill in the blank.
have you heard anything on Santa Luz?
No, although Leslie last board meeting gave me a thumb drive with everything on it. I've not yet gone through all that material. And as soon as I find anything, I'll get a hold of Mark.
Okay. And then the last one you took care of, because I was going to ask you, was that a Harley Davidson mask you got on?
No, I don't know what
I was
this is.
saying, did our attorney go and join a motorcycle club?
And I've got a Honda Shadow too. Harley doesn't, but no, I thought it was kind of nice.
Looked like a Harley Davidson. That's all I had.
I don't have any tattoos either.
Supervisor Geppert.
Yeah.
I was wondering.
At the last meeting,
My wife would kill.
we reported that we had not started anything relative to ponds for our Gateway Work Group. That initial kickoff meeting has taken place. Brian L. Xanter Geppert started. There will be additional participants in the future. We're going to solicit some people to come and help us.
I can't hear.
Going to solicit some additional people to help in that group. Designated Brian as the chair because functionally that's within his scope of work. He should be the leader. We're taking a macro view at first. We're going to be looking at developing a vision of where we want to go, the kinds of things that we need to budget and plan for doing, like main emphasis on things like water quality, aeration, potentially stocking with fish, littorals, which is a touchy one, erosion, bathymetrics, and a citizen GIS access type of thing. So there's going to be a lot of things that will happen. We're going to meet at least monthly over the next couple of months, and we'll be ready to have a report for them.
Yeah, and what I would recommend on that is, as we're looking for committee members, let's look at the communities that have significant number of ponds and those maybe with significant issues. Hampton might be a good one, and even Stony Brook. If we can, if there is someone that wants to participate.
Keep in mind, Hamptons all have aeration.
Yeah.
But my point is,
the other part, Doug,
equal,
is we need to make sure we've got open-minded. You don't need someone coming in that has a quote unquote hidden agenda. Let's let a blank template, a greenfield approach. What should What does the data drive us to? What does the science drive us to?
No, I completely agree. And that's
So-
why I think if you can hand select some folks, that you
Yes.
think would fit well within the.
And people that have acted and expressed interest. I mean, I don't know that many Gateway folks, but I know that Elle and Brian
And-
do, so they'll be going.
And so let me just, do you mind?
No, go
Just
ahead.
ask this. So the goal will be to probably revise the pond standards once more.
Well, that may be a component, but that's a minor component.
So, what concerns me is this is revision, this is probably the fourth pond standards that we did. And I think from number 1, we never adhere to. Number 2, never adhere to. Number 3, never adhere to. Number 4, still don't adhere to. Then-
Well, here's the
So-
focus.
so-
Claude.
so here's-
the
I-
focus. Wait, just one
let-
second.
Mhm.
Pelican's functioning well with their ponds. We have no pond standard. So we need to get a functioning group. Pond standards will certainly be a component of it, but we don't want to be restricted and all tied up in the legal definitions of this or that or DRI. Let's put something out for the residents to make the ponds better, that makes sense for the science, that kind of thing.
But to Flavia's point, there's no purpose in having policies, procedures, if there's not a governing body willing to enforce them or regulate them.
And I come to the point that I do agree with you that you're gonna have a lot of people with their own agendas to it. And the goal on the last one, I think we kind of broke it up to, we had people from Gateway Greens. We wanted to get multiple communities in there that had a say. And I know we talked about this 2 or 3 years back. Why don't we just hire a professional to come up with what's best for us? Because you're looking, I mean, we had Ed, we were lucky to have him because that was in Eastfield. I had to learn everything from scratch. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Bob has experience and so does Doug. But I think it's such a huge dollar amount to maintain and to preserve and to be proactive and reactive. I think is the time to us, we have a committee for the landscaping, for the flowers, but for something like this, that we're spending a huge chunk of money, hire
Right, Phil.
to come in and assess it and say, look, this is, because that's what we should be looking for. What you need. I think we should be looking at that.
I'm not saying negative to that, and I'm just speaking for the group, and Brian should be. But the focus initially, anyway, let's look at the big picture. We're trying to improve the quality of the ponds behind the residents' homes, rather than constantly. And yeah, we expertise of our suppliers, like Aquagenics, Lake Master, Solitude. Also the resources of Lee County with the Pond Watch Group. And we in Pelican use Florida Gulf Coast University also, Dr. Serge Thomasville. So the resources there. We did not go out and hire, quote unquote, a landscape contract.
But then again, you guys didn't have so much controversy. 1, 2, we wouldn't be able to be going to Lee County and collecting samples. I mean, this was adopted in
But
June.
we can under this, the way we're going to do it. And yes, they won't accept it for a gateway. It's not Gateway doing it. It's individual citizens doing it. And that's how we do it in Pelican. And I've been doing it for 9 years.
Okay, well, and I agree with you. And that's how, so I really
Well,
need the.
let's talk because I mean.
Let's do this.
Well,
Well, hold, this is,
Talk here.
yeah, I can't talk
Okay,
without it
then-
here.
then I'll be quiet.
there's another issue on all of this. We throw, and I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to it. I just want to make sure everybody is aware of it. You take this pond aeration, now, because I've done the math on our side of the fence here, and then you throw in this park, and you're going to be popping the $1,000 assessment.
Well, I mean.
How does it go
But
play
it's
in
not
Peoria?
just that simple. It's
No, I mean, it is that
aeration, it's
simple to
park,
the
it's
people, though.
irrigation, it's.
They're separate and
ponds,
together
I mean,
at the same time.
There's more than one.
But my point is
more than one
that the people, they're going to see it as $1,000.
Mhm.
They aren't going to care whether it's park or it's going to be aeration. It's $1,000. And I think you're going to get to that number very
Very fast.
quickly.
And here's the thing, when I say about the water, I completely agree with you. And Ed and I were part of that, collecting the water, and direction was from staff. And I believe it was from Chris that, you know what, we're stopped, and it was free. And I never understood why we stopped, me as a person, and I had a replacement that was just a regular resident to go to Ernesto and continue the program. The instruction was to stop because that was not the right thing to do, because behind the scenes we're still doing for Gateway. So if that's what, if you're gonna say that you're gonna still give me another person to go in as a resident, it was exactly what we're doing before, and I was told not to do. So here I
You
am,
were told by whom?
Chris. So I lost
The
2 years
inference
old of
was that we
data.
were doing something that nobody else was doing it. in all essence, we were doing it for the CDD, whereas other ones, they're doing it like a homeowners association.
So I think, this is another good topic for us to workshop at some point.
It's
So
nitpicky.
we're not going to solve it. I would like to give the committee an opportunity for them to look at things
Try and chart a path.
through their lens.
Well, especially because of the fact that it's so important.
Yeah.
The aeration is important.
Well,
And-
just the total cost. I mean,
It's all of it. Yeah, it's
It's a lot.
big hodgepodge.
So, and I want to make sure this is a problem. This is my last one. So is the direction of this board to follow the document as it's written because it was adopted? Because staff is picking and choosing what they are hearing to, and I don't like that. And they're
60
being
days after
notified.
we approved it, we were not following it, so.
And I mentioned that from day one. I mean, I'm here July and now we never once took a water sample.
Well, I've seen that snake trying to eat its tail a long time. I mean, I'm trying to avoid that.
Well,
I'm
the
not
problem is
avoiding the question.
we've set
But
forth
it's
a
further down
standard
the
that we can't physically hold ourselves accountable to at this point from a cost perspective. It's in the pond standard. We would have to spend.
Well, I think we
probably
could do it.
$5
I just don't
million.
think we could sell.
Well,
That's the problem.
So we either, but to your point, I agree that there's no point of having a policy or procedure if you can't enforce it, or you're not.
Or you're not
If
willing.
you're not willing to. And-
We're not prepared at this point.
Yeah.
And I think
that's
we'd
it.
like to, but, so I think that's something we need to address, and we either need to augment the pond standard to what we can physically support today, and we have a future state of where we'd like to be in a certain amount of time. We build a roadmap or a
Target,
path
right.
to
Target.
that. But
But I
we
think,
can't have both ways.
I agree, but then I think we're making Chris' job is very difficult because then we're putting on him to decide what part of that he is going to hear or not. And all it takes, I'm telling you, the amount of people that
No,
have
that's the
reached out
problem we
to
have
me.
today, is we have
Yeah.
procedures that we're not following. So we either need to amend the policies and procedures to something that we can enforce and fund today,
Mhm.
or we put a stake in the ground and say, okay, next budget season, we're going to come up with the financing and funding to be able to bring us up to 100% in
Compliance.
accordance with the standard. And there's only two paths. You either do it or you don't. So that's where we need to get to.
And from my standpoint, I had a very direct conversation with staff that the board set a policy and we have a budget. And there seemed to have been a problem to implement it and follow those standards with the management framework. And I told them when they signed the Aquagenics contract to bring your management framework forward, and they haven't. And we had a very direct conversation about that. And we do have the resources. It's just not being done.
Well, and what I would want
And
is.
that's what I want, like the water, we budget for that and you're
Right.
gonna be, and has not been taken in 6 months. That's half of the year.
Well, and here's the thing, and what we should be seeing, if we have a standard in place and we are not following through with that, I need to see Brian or Elle or someone up at this podium every 2 weeks saying, we have a standard in place, we can't reasonably execute because of X, Y, and Z.
Perfect.
It
I
should
agree.
not be at staff's discretion to determine what they enforce and what they don't enforce. It's not their responsibility. They either come to you and you sign off, or if you don't have authority, you come to this board.
I agree.
And on the sampling, I did take responsibility because Ernesto's program was for neighborhood pond groups, and we were taking in CDD samples. And I said, if we're going to do it, we're going to take them to a lab.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
did
we
not.
we were bending the rules. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
So,
Well,
also
but
had-
wait a minute. Now, in all fairness, yeah, they may be CDD samples, but it's information to a neighborhood that we just happen to be leeching off of and using their information. There's
You're
nothing wrong with
dancing
that.
around that.
Well, you're dancing around it, but it's a free service that we as residents pay for. Why not use it? It's a free service. That doesn't say we don't also go out, because we also send out.
well, if the HOA is using the information for their benefit and they're also sharing that information with the CDD.
Right.
Then that's,
I don't think we're going to find an HOA that's going to step forward to
No.
take
Well,
responsibility.
We will, and have a little
We'll-
faith.
we'll accept it.
We will.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Okay, I would
13 minutes
call the meeting adjourned at 5:13.
Why are you sweating?
Doesn't Stony Brook have an issue here, I thought?
Is there something with
Did we
Stony
miss
Brook?
something?
The Stony Brook minutes, advisory committee minutes.
We approved those, I thought. There was no,
We
We
on the consent.
That approved the expenditure for the repairs to the.
I don't have an item that has anything about Stony Brook.
Besides the minutes, I don't have anything.
What was it, Joe?
What do you need?
Yeah, well, I didn't see anything that we were going to
Neither did
approve.
I.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
That's right here.
Yeah, we didn't make it the first meeting. I thought we'd make this meeting for the repairs to our the paved pathway. That we just chopped down a bunch of trees, ground up roots, and we also put a barrier in to stop root infringement on other trees for that pavement, because the pavement's all chewed up. And we're ready to, I thought we had a purchase order, and I thought we were ready to go and get approval for having the company come in and repave a certain number of square feet. I think it's like 6,700 square feet of that pathway.
That all stopped 3 days ago because at your meeting, you didn't designate where the funding came from. And Laura and I've sent 3 emails over there that we need you to officially designate the fund where it's going to come from. You can't just say, pull it out somewhere and find it, which is what your thing was, or pull it out of some reserve account.
So where's this?
Actually, I thought we did respond, and maybe there wasn't enough detail that you were looking
Just,
for.
all
But if
we're
there
looking for
wasn't,
is something in writing, and we'll issue the purchase order. We just need it because Infomark won't let you pull something out of a reserve account without a GL.
Anything that we need to do to facilitate it?
No.
It's not anything we need to approve, right?
all right, so I thought it was because it was over a certain amount of money. All right, fine.
All right, so I guess you're good, Joe, as long as you just designate where the fund's gonna come from, and then Chris will cut the PO.
Okay.
I'm working with a contractor and he's just waiting and he's gonna send it over and we send him the deposit and they're scheduled to work.
Awesome.
We're in good shape.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, so I'll revise the meeting adjournment to 5:16.
All right.
Thank you.
Everyone.
No, that's, I mean, that's it. I wouldn't.
Yeah, let's go.
Sir. Sure. Put it right there.
Have a good day, friend.
It's hot in here.